Started on my end, so I should be up and running now.
Okay. Oh, I gotta reconnect to YouTube. I swapped to Twitch last night.
Oh, I see Maddie's already popped over into your chat. Hi, Maddie. Good morning. I'm going to say good morning to a few folks in my chat while you're getting set up. Good morning, Rosalie. Good morning, Crazy Krita. Good morning, Anya. Good morning, Goofy. I see so many people are here. I just want to say thank you to Floating Away today for sending in some gift memberships already. Thank you so much, cutie. Head pats for you.
And we are here.
How's the new pet rat? Hopefully existing outside of my home currently.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting a Ratatouille sponsorship.
You know, when I said I wanted a new pet, I meant to say cat. I don't know who said who heard rat, but I said cat. I want a new cat.
It's just a typo. You can live with it, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I have to, unfortunately. I've got
Hi,
some
Maddie.
steel wool. That's gonna be the end of that.
I'm seeing someone in your chat bought silk pillow sheets. Heck yeah. Oh, peak.
Hi, Lucy. I should get something like that too. Honestly, though, like I already have issues, like because I don't use cases on like any of my like mobile devices though, and they're already too slippery. I can't even imagine like tossing my iPad on the bed and just slide completely off.
I mean, that's what I thought too. Some of the bonnets that I've seen, like, you know, they do actually have a thing where you kind of like tie a little bow and you kind of like secure it. I'm surprised how well that's worked because I thought it would happen. I thought that exact same thing would happen.
Oh goodness!
And like, even if it does like fall off in the middle of the night, it's still like half the night. It was like, you know, protecting your hair and stuff.
I have been sleeping with like because my hair has gotten so long and so thick. If I don't put like this ridiculous like ponytail almost on exactly the top of my head, or put like pigtails in, I can't sleep. I will wake up like with all my hair soaked in sweat.
Oh yeah. If I wasn't putting all my hair in a bonnet, I would definitely be like putting it in a high ponytail before going to bed. Maybe even a bun. Hi, Melaticia. Hi, Stellar.
Good morning. Is it
It's
just
nice
me?
to
Is
see
there
you
no
all.
audio on this stream? Wait, what? Oh no. I hope things aren't messed up on my side.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I guess we're gonna have to... Hi, Rain. I have a new YouTube account now. I am not a new person. Don't worry, I figured it out. Hopefully they can hear me. All right, now I'm gonna type in the chat because now I'm paired. Wait, that's just you. Okay. All right. Thank you, Anna. I was like, oh no, what did I mess up this time?
Dang. The amount of times there's like his setting disconnects is like, oh wait, the user was muted in some way. Ah.
So I just want to say real quick, greetings everyone from both Leon's side and obviously from my side as well. We are doing
Hi.
we are doing another talking transition. So this isn't necessarily like an AMA, though. If anybody has any questions for us, we're absolutely like happy to like answer them for you. One thing I do want to mention is in either one of our chats, make sure you try adding us so that way it's easier to see, especially if we missed your question. And at least for me, I can be kind of bad about reading the chat. So if I missed your question, don't be afraid to ask again. I will let you know if I don't want to answer the question. Rain, you're a bit quiet.
Louie's here.
Oh boy. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can fix that. There, am I louder now?
Definitely louder. Maybe this is just indicative of how much I've learned to project myself.
If I do it too, if I have the volume up too loud, like I end up peaking the microphone. I have the opposite issue. I project too much, so I end up lowering my volume down to like offset it.
You know, it's so surprising. I, as you know, I started streaming like 13, 14 months ago, like a little over a year ago, and listening to how I talk like nowadays in recent VODs versus when I started, it's night and day. It's weird.
Your channel has grown so much. I mean, honestly, I can't believe how long you've been going for so far.
You know, when we started streaming, it's just like, it was fun enough that it just came naturally.
Hi, Goofy. I see you over there. I'm able to read both sides of the chat this time. So, like, unlike last time, I'm actually going to be able to stay on top of everything.
I'm over here now. Hi, Goofy Gaffa. Also, the art slideshow thing. Yes, we are figuring out new technologies over in the theater chat.
Well, Leon is. I barely got this put together. I feel bad because, like, last night I messaged Leon. I'm like, oh, we scheduled something for Monday, didn't we? Whoops.
I mean, to be fair, we were sitting there like, like we weren't really thinking about it. Like we were planning on it, but it's like in our heads, like we were sitting there like, oh yeah, like we'll show up tomorrow for that. And then we receive a message like, so what do you want to do for this? It's just like, oh wait, I thought we already had that settled.
You know, honestly, we may have discussed it and I may have just like completely blanked on it. That's why I was like, maybe we should figure this out.
Lucy, in your chat, we are transgender witches and wizards sponsored by the shadow government. You're not supposed to reveal our secrets.
Yes, now the regular government's gonna find us out.
Leon leveled up on the tech tree. We definitely put some work in. Oh my goodness! I'm hoping everything looks all right. I want like a bit more of like a proper presentation for the slideshows, but like we are in a make it exist first kind of mood lately.
Oh my god, that's so real, even for me. Especially with those Kenshi videos. I have no idea how to edit something like that. So I'm just putting it together and just hoping for the best.
So are you both sisters because you both only have one letter difference, I'm presuming, for the names? Not biologically, if that's what you mean, but we've been friends for over a couple of years now.
I mean, you could call us sisters and like, I guess like I don't know, the platonic way? I don't know the right way to phrase
Well, yeah,
that.
like, in that sense, like, I can love all my trans siblings.
But no, we're not sisters, even though I'd love to have Leon as a actual sister. We're not biologically related.
You know, it just happenstance that we share 3 letters each out of our 4-letter names.
Aren't the shadow government supposed to control the government from the shadows? What kind of shadow government wouldn't be in control of the actual government?
Super Head Patted $2.16 would have asked what happens when a irrefutable cutie meets an undeniable cutie. But it seems that you two became best friends.
I would have asked what happens when an irrefutable cutie meets an undeniable cutie, but it seems you two became best friends? Which two? It's like, I don't know where the 2 cuties are yet. I just see Rain.
I don't see any cuties here floating away today. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never been cute. Head pats for you, though, cutie. You're the real cute one here.
Star Sisters, yo.
Oh, I like that. That's actually
because
great.
The stars share the sky like you share similar names. Yo.
I love that. That's perfect, actually.
Oh my gosh, the heart. Yeah, Lily, it's the heart you did. It looks so good on that.
So before the stream started, Lee and I almost got into some topics about like what we should have been talking about on stream. I know I brought this up in the Discord yesterday, but when I was out on Saturday, I put in absolutely zero effort into my look. So like when I left the house, I literally put on my blue Miku t-shirt, my pink shorts. I had shaved like my legs, but I just put my hair up in a ponytail and just walked out the door. Well, not walked out the door, but you know what I mean. I just left the house and I'm like, whatever. I don't care how I look. The lady at the store was like, ma'am, do you want a bag for that? And I'm like, my jaw almost hit the ground, and I'm like, did you seriously just call me ma'am? Did you just assume my gender as female looking like this? And it was amazing.
No effort passing jump scare. We love that experience.
Honestly, like, I left the house going like, yeah, I'm probably going to get misgendered today, right? Like, I don't, like, not in, like, a bad way, but just, like, in a, I'm mentally prepared for that to happen kind of way.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like you mentally prepare yourself for that just to, like, you know, guard yourself against the possible disappointment. But, like, it's surprising how much progress gets made when you, especially after 2 or 3 years about on HRT.
Congratulations. Did you take the bag? I did.
Ma'am jump scare, best jump scare? Yes, it is, Laika. Absolutely.
You know, it's entirely possible she was just trying to upsell me on the extra bags.
Did it work?
It obviously did. Yes, I'll take the extra bags. Thank you, sweetie.
Ace says, so Rain on the left while Leon is on the right, opposite of the name initials. You know what? You're right. I should have swapped those around.
Oh, wait. I think I did the same thing, too. Oh, no. I'm on the left and you're on the right.
Well, the problem is my model, right, is naturally predisposed to being on the right side of the screen the way I have it set up.
Yeah,
I suppose I could, like, flip it.
I mean, I probably could have done it on my side, too, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe
we'll have to remember that for future.
I'm going to have to set it up that way.
You two talking together so adorable. What? No. Hey, not me, just Rain.
I got 2 you ladies at work yesterday. Hell yeah.
Heck yeah.
Though the way you do your hair, Anna, I mean, I'm going to be real. Like, if I looked at you at pretty much any angle and distance, it's really hard for me to assume any other gender than female. Your hair, like, is really good. But I'm also, like, I prefer straight hair, and I have curly, so I might just be envious of like, how your hair is.
Well, and, like, I was about to tell Rain while she was recounting this earlier, but, like, it is always, it's such a powerful instinct to hyperfixate on the specific parts of yourself that give you, that make you insecure. And for trans folks, it's obviously the things that would, you know, make you, like, clockable to anyone else as trans. And, like, because you hyper focus on those things, you feel so much, like, less passing than you actually are.
It's so true. I feel like for, like, the things that I see in the mirror, it's almost like there's a giant, like, pink highlighter on my face, and it's like everybody's gonna see these specific issues, even if that's not necessarily true.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. But as I was telling Rain earlier, the mechanisms in the brain by which people, like, most naturally recognize male and female are primordial and operate within, like, a quarter of a second, even without the person realizing. It is a instinctual thing that is unconscious. And it's all about just how many how many flags do you tick for one side versus the other? Which side has more? That's what makes the call. It's not even a debate. As soon as you're 50.1% on one side, people will confidently gender you that way.
Honestly, I 100% agree with that. Now that I've experienced it a few times, I try not to beat myself up so badly in the mirror. But I was also telling Leon before the stream started, before I went out on Saturday, I went to try to fix my eyebrows, and I really should just not do this anymore. But I went ahead and shaved them, and one of them is flat now. So I have, like, one curved eyebrow and one flat eyebrow. I look like I'm doing that thing like The Rock does all the time.
Anna says, my side profile makes me feel awful. That's one of the things that's one of my like big insecurities is there are certain points where like, I walk past a couple mirrors that are like at an angle, or I could set up that situation at home and I see what my side profile is. And it just reads so bad to me, but it's not something that anyone else seems to notice. It's so weird.
I don't have an issue with like the profiles of my face. I feel like I look kind of consistent from any angle, but for me it's the lighting, and I feel certain lighting exposes me in different ways that like it's like more natural light. I feel like I look better, but like if you put like a bright white light on my face, like I feel like you could instantly see everything I was trying to hide. And maybe that's just me, but that's the way I feel about it.
Oh yeah, and like again, in a similar fashion, like it feels like anyone that might see me from the side would like immediately clock like the heckin' what to me feels like this like Neanderthal face, but like nobody ever says anything, and so it's like, well, on some level, I have to recognize that like it must just be me that has that insecurity and not anyone else about me.
That's what I'm noticing too. Like, and nobody says anything, right? Like, even though the only person who mentioned anything about my eyebrow was my mom, and it took her 45 minutes of hanging out with me before she even like realized I had done that. So like that even just strengthens your point. My own mother, it took her nearly an hour to see the mistake I made with my eyebrows. So like if you're worried about these things and you're looking in the mirror, most average folks aren't even going to see it at all.
Like all these features are things that like, whenever you're walking, like on the street or you're out and about in a given day, you have to think about like how much are you paying attention to random passersby, right? You're glancing at them for maybe a quarter of a second, if that, in many, many cases. And like, it's only the people you talk to that take it any longer than that. And you have to recognize that you are just as invisible to everyone else.
The thing that like usually like, and I don't know about me, it's like usually there's only one thing I notice about somebody, and it's like, oh, they have a cool t-shirt. Oh, I like their hair, right? Like it's not like I made a full observation of who they were.
Yeah, you like maybe notice one feature that like stuck out to you as like more often appealing, but like they probably have like 7 other things that they are self-conscious of, like all around, that you probably didn't pick up on, and you wouldn't know unless you're in their head.
Is it just us, or does Miss Rain seem like she would be one of those 90-year-old ladies that would have candy to give people who's kind to her? I'm definitely going to be like that when I get to that age, if I even live to be 90. Kind of feel like I'm that way already.
As in, when I reach 90, I'm gonna heckin' go to a park and just challenge random people that are like, who knows, in their 20s or 30s to like fighting games.
I imagine myself rolling up in my wheelchair and like breaking out like an easel at like that age and just drawing in the park all day.
Yeah.
That's my retirement plan. Let's see. Bright lights actually help. So unless there's a spotlight directly above, nobody's going to see anything. I think it's honestly just my own perception, because I look really hard in the mirror, and I probably get way too close to my own face for my own good.
Unfortunately, I gotta look in the mirror when needing to shave. Not nice at all. Yeah, that was a lot of like our early experience as well. It has gotten better for us, although we are over 4 years on estrogen already, and like all the other work that we've done to transition. So like it does get better. It's surprising how like now I am like, not perfect, but I'm more comfortable seeing myself in the mirror now in everything except like the side profile. And it's one of those things where it's like, wow, I was so I was experiencing such depersonalization that it's like now I'm able to actually enjoy the way I present. I actually feel like I'm living now.
Thomas says you're your own worst critic. Most people don't notice stuff like that. I honestly, yeah, it's so true. Most people don't care. They're so worried about their own problems and the things going on in their head. They barely notice you. They just have to interact with you long enough to like get through whatever you're doing.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
What are y'all's favorite chips/crisp flavors? Question for Rain and Leon. I'm personally my favorite chips, and this is something that happened after I started taking estrogen because I didn't used to like these chips at all. But I will now eat pickle flavored chips, and I will also. But my most favorite is salt and vinegar kettle cooked chips, like with the extra crunch and like, oh god, I don't know why I love all of those flavors together.
I've got that neurodivergent, like, very strict, like, I eat certain foods and not others. And for at least potato chips, I just have like the regular wavy ones. I haven't really tried many like flavored chips.
Wait. So have you had salt and vinegar yet?
No.
Oh no. Okay. It's really good. But be ready, because it can be kind of intense. Some people have salt and vinegar chips, and they're like, ooh, that's too salty and too vinegary. And I totally get that.
Yeah, no, usually salt is fine. In like more recently, I have been more adventurous, but like I grew up the pickiest person I ever knew. So like it was hard not to improve from that. Salt usually isn't an issue. If anything's an issue for me, it's usually texture, like ACE is saying.
I had some like regular salt and vinegar chips that didn't have like the kettle cooked texture to them, and I'm gonna be real, it was just not. It's the flavor was the same, but like the experience is I need that like extra crunch, or it's just why even bother eating chips? I kind of feel you there.
Mm-hmm. Lily says people will ask you to do this. They'll be like, no, I don't think I will. There's nothing to admit.
I used to love salt and vinegar flavor. Sea salt chips. I've had the sea salt ones, but honestly, I think it's like the combo for me. I don't know. I can't just do the salt flavor. It's got to have the vinegar in it.
My brain is now finally back to the stream. Hooray! Hopefully it stays here. Oh, I hope you're doing well, Stellar.
When I look in the mirror, it makes me feel weird and quite sad. That was something Rosalie said earlier in my chat. I can relate to that a lot because when I first started transitioning, there was even like a time where I was starting to cover up like the top half of the mirror, so I could only like really see like my like mouth and not even like my nose and above. So I could definitely relate to that. And, I'm sure, like, I don't know if it's necessarily a good idea to cover up the mirror, but it helped me. Like, it helped me at least not have to get that shock every time I needed to go to the mirror to do something like brush my teeth. And once my hair grew out, I was finally able to start, like, approaching the mirror with, like, a little bit, like, with a little bit more chill with myself, I guess, for lack of a better phrasing.
It's definitely a slow process, and it's one where like you don't feel like anything's changing just because the changes are so gradual. And then you run into a situation where you're like, oh, zero effort ma'am jump scare, or something else that happens, like after folks have been transitioning for a while, jump scared by girl in the mirror. Like it's just one time you look up and you're like, wait, you have a moment of just sitting there like, oh, I see her.
I do that at a distance now. If I see my reflection or if I see myself on like one of those CCTV cameras, I don't recognize myself. I'm just like, oh, who's that girl there? Like that's also in this. Like, oh wait, that's me.
There's one point where in one of my delivery routes where I will open a door to like leave some like doctor's office, and the window pane on the opposite side is really reflective given the angle of the light. And there was a time where I thought someone was exiting the other side at the exact same time I was, and I thought like, oh, I wonder like who she is, and before realizing, wait, that's my own reflection.
There was one, there was one CCTV. Cause like I don't honestly I don't recognize the backside of myself, so I was looking at myself on this camera, and I was like, wow, that girl's got a great body shape. And it was me standing there with my cane, like, at the register. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, no, like, I don't know. I'm still kind of, like, self-conscious about broader shoulders on us. But, like, besides that, like, anytime we see, like, our general, like, figure in, like, mirrors, it's like, wait, no, we've made it. We've actually got, like, hips and everything. Heck yeah.
I have that issue too, because like obviously like I use my wheelchair more than anything else, which means my arms are constantly getting worked out, and I have like decently sized arms. I don't think it's ever going away. I just wish that I could wear hoodies all the time. Like that is the thing that works the best for me. It's just like covering them up. But I've also been told by a lot of people that they like that, and they think that looks good on me. Like, so I don't know. I'm getting mixed. I'm getting mixed signals.
I mean, muscle girls are appealing.
That's what a lot of girls are like. Ooh, lumberjack raid, and I'm like, I don't know about that, but yeah, it's kind of not far from the truth.
It's got like some lesbian energy. Leica, I recognize that story, Leon. You left out the most important part. No, Leica, no. I just didn't misspeak this time.
Wait. Did you admit you were cute during that story last time?
No. That didn't happen. No. It was all a fabrication. We made it all up.
Yeah. You know what? I'll believe you this time. You'll get your one free believe pass.
Sure. Thank you. Rain, what do you think is the best way to take E? Pills, injections, or cream? Same questions to Leon. I only have, for as far as estrogen goes, I only have experience with sublingual tablets. But I've been happy on those.
I am exactly the same. I've only done sublingual. I also take Spiro. I take that. Well, my dosage has changed since I've started, but I take it 1 or 2 times a day, just kind of depending on what the doctor recommends. I personally think that works the best for me. I am thinking about changing out my Spiro because I don't like how frequently it makes me go to the bathroom. So if there is something else I can switch to that's available to me, I might make that consideration. But it's also kind of a moot point, because if I do end up getting any kind of like bottom surgery in the future, I'm probably not going to need the testosterone blocker anymore. So, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, do I make the change? Because it's like the only issue I have with that particular medication is like the frequency I use the restroom.
Yeah, if I were to change at all, and like at this point I'm not on an anti-androgen like Spiro anymore because I don't need it. I'm like post bottom surgery. If I were to change the way I get my estrogen, I would probably be trying injection, because as Leica is mentioning, it is cheaper overall, and I would be interested in not needing to dose as often.
I mean, that would be convenient. I do have a tendency to forget, not to like forget it outright, but like to say that I take my medication on time would also be a lie. I'm usually like an hour, sometimes 2 hours behind taking it.
Oh, for me, it's like, it's often like I'll forget for a few hours at a time, but it's like I'll always like take it by like before going to bed.
I'm so bad because I have alarms and everything for it, and when I literally look at the alarm and I go, yes, it is time to take my medication, and then I do something else, and then I'm like, oh crap, 2 hours just went by and I still haven't done that.
Lily says the Banui will help, referring to the injections. Heck yeah. No, transbian girlfriends, they help each other with the injections. We love this Yuri.
Raid said she liked her figure. Leon said she was cute. Sounds like the truth slips out a bit.
Calling that the truth is exaggerating.
Yeah, listen, right? Everybody is capable of making a mistake sometimes.
I misspoke, that's all.
Girls are allowed to have arms that aren't spaghetti noodles, Thomas says. I mean, that is true. And I've always, it doesn't matter at what point in my life, I've always thought that fit girls look really good, even, if they look extremely muscular. Maybe that's just a personal preference of mine. I've always appreciated the look, but, when it comes to myself and the way I look, I don't know. I tend to put the general expectations others would prefer onto myself, and I'm just do I match that? And maybe that's not the best mentality for me, but that's the way I look at it.
That kind of thinking is usually how it starts, right? I think that's fairly common for most trans girls, I would say, to be really self-conscious about what everyone else is thinking. And I think there's a natural transition, pardon the pun, at some point where you stop worrying about what everyone else thinks and you start realizing that the whole point of transitioning is to more radically be yourself. And you're the only person you have to satisfy,
That is something that I have eventually come to the conclusion on. And I still do it a little bit. I'm still fighting against this. But I am glad that I'm kind of finding my own style, finding what works for me, and feeling a lot more natural about the decisions I make with my hair. I didn't the other day I just put my hair up into pigtails and I twisted them like 2 anime drills, and it looks good. And it doesn't matter if anybody else thinks it looks good. I think it looks cute, so I'll wear my hair like that. It doesn't matter anymore.
No, exactly. And there's so many different ideas of what facets are feminine, what represents a woman, and it's I'm very feminine. I rest pretty solidly on that side of the binary, but at the same time I'm also neurodivergent. There's a lot of things about us that are not the same as the majority of women that you would consider to quote unquote be normal. So it's I've definitely become comfortable in the idea of there are things that are facets about just being me that are feminine but aren't within societal expectations. That doesn't matter because I'm the only one that has to be satisfied by those things.
You make a really good point there. And one thing that I've been getting more comfortable with too, because when I first started transitioning, I kind of went okay, everything about me has to be some sort of representation of being feminine. And I've finally just gotten kind of more comfortable with being actually, it's okay that I watch blacksmithing videos about making axes still. It doesn't that doesn't dictate anything about my gender. So I've personally started going through and just being that has nothing to do with gender. That's fine, right? Whereas before, I think a lot of trans girls might overcorrect like I did and go, no, everything has to be the female version about myself.
Oh yeah. And I feel I would be in agreement with a lot of girls when I say you talk about a woman blacksmith and I'm just you got my attention.
Exactly, right? It's only weird to me in my poor thinking in that moment, but I the only reason I do bringing this stuff up is because I don't know if anybody else falls into these traps, but I certainly did. I certainly overcorrected at first. I've undercorrected. I've done all sorts of crazy stuff on this nearly 2-year journey I've been on.
Asae is saying, so it's how to unmask by masking differently at the start, though I don't know if masking is the right word. No, Asae, I think that is actually pretty close to like a very representative like aspect of it. And what I mean is, you like trans girls especially, but like trans folks and like even cis people in general, like we spend so much time masking in some cases, where sometimes it's like we forget who the us is underneath it all. And so like there's some time that you have to spend where you have to experiment with other, masks, so to speak, to try to figure out where you are again. You have to figure out how to be you again.
So there's a great video by a content creator named A. Lillian. I'm going to drop the link in my YouTube chat. Yeah, it's called Unmasking. And I really feel like this covers, because I watched this right at the beginning of my transition. And I would say it's not necessarily putting on a different mask. It's more about recognizing the fact that the mask needs to come down slowly. Because if you just rip the mask off your face and try to be something completely different, you're going to find it's empty. You're going to find there's not a lot there. You're just basically just pretending to be something else. That's not the point. And I recognized that pretty quickly at the beginning of my transition. My goal, and I know everybody's got different transition goals, right? Every girl's different. Every girl has like a different desire for how they want to be. But for me, it wasn't just about becoming the woman that I wanted to become, but it was also about fixing like a lot of the underlying, like, issues that I had, like with myself, with like the way I look at myself, the way I treat myself, my own level of happiness. Becoming a happy, healthy woman is my general transition goal, not just becoming a woman.
A. Lillian is fantastic. As someone who is very neurodivergent, a lot of their videos hit very, very close to home. Anyone that feels like their neurotype might be behaving differently than most people that they interact with on a day-to-day life would do well to check those out. But one thing that I think A. Lillian touches on, if I remember right, is that like the other aspect of it is that masks do have a use. There's a reason why we instinctually mask. And like, it creates a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms, sure, but it is also a matter of safety, right? Like, especially when you're early on in transition, sometimes you mask in order to like not be caught out in a place that you're not ready for.
I think the thing that I tried to like follow their advice in that video very closely. As the mask came down, I figured out a proper way to build a shield. And I think that's the best like analogy she made in the video is, a mask is a mask. That's you just kind of masquerading and pretending to be something that you're not. But a shield is different. A shield is something that you use to protect yourself. And it's not something that is heavy and has to be worn all the time. It can be just put up when it's needed to protect yourself. So I think that's a good way of looking at it as well. And I'm glad she brought that analogy up.
Oh, definitely. Manny says, it's painful. It's a painfully relatable trans experience. When I realized I was non-binary, I also realized I had zero clue what I actually wanted to look like and was just doing what I thought I was supposed to. Discovering yourself is part of the transition process. So like, I truly think deciding to transition is taking a radical self-care decision to be yourself to the fullest extent.
I fully agree with that because like I had a lot of like coping issues, like, and this is just me being very honest about it, but like before I made the decision to transition, I didn't cope with my problems. I ignored them. I actively ignored things that bothered me. I actively ignored like the way people treated me and just was like, whatever, right? Like I would just not even like acknowledge it. It's like, oh, they treated me like crap. And it's like, well, I guess I deserve it then or something, right? Like I just brush it off, everything. Whereas like I don't do that anymore. Now I self-reflect on these things and I ask myself like the really difficult questions about like whether or not I'm doing the right things that are healthy for me, or if I'm just like doing the same old dance. Like, am I just being overly accommodating to somebody's like bad behaviors just because I don't want to deal with that? stuff like that. And that's more personal, but I don't know. Thought I'd mention it.
Oh yeah. ACE mentions hard part asking is when you have no place where you can remove the mask, and that's true for a lot of folks too. I would say if I think back like 10 years ago, I was in a situation where I don't think I had a reasonable way to start removing the mask that was safe, and that was because like I was living in a very conservative area at the time amongst conservative family. So like it was one of those things where it's like I really couldn't work on myself until I left to a blue state.
Honestly, and that's the thing I try to remind everybody in my community when they first start asking about this, like how do I talk to people, you got to be comfortable and it's got to be safe. Like those are like the two most important things before you even start bringing it up to like regular folks in your real life. Like if you don't feel that way, it's really difficult to even like start working up the courage to have that. I honestly, like, until I was like very comfortable with myself, I don't think I could have had those IRL conversations with people.
Well, yeah, it's like the hierarchy of needs. Like you need the safety to be a foundation of which you build every other need on top of.
I think it's also like really important too that like you have to, like, at any other point in my life, like I might be able to recognize now that I wish that when I was a teenager I started doing this stuff, right? Like when I was 16, I wish I had these same revelations and realizations and stuff like that. But now this, like, I still wouldn't go back in time and switch all of that, because like if I did, it would undo like the person I am today. It was those experiences and doing it in the moment that I did it that built me into the person I am today, and I'm happy with that. So try not to like regret it. Like if today is the best day to start like coming out of the closet and recognizing those things, don't try to beat yourself up that you should have done it, like, because I've lived half my life before I even like recognized that this was something that I needed to do for myself.
Oh yeah, people are transitioning later in life all the time. One of the most common things that you hear trans folks say online is that they wish they started sooner. But the fact is, like, you had things worked out in a particular way. You made decisions based on what information you had, and it's one of those things where you have to give yourself grace for the fact that like you learned it when you did. And the important part is what decisions you make going forward in order to embrace whatever makes you happy.
Something that helped me out a lot too was looking at like transition photos from like significantly older people than myself. Like I'm talking like in their 60s and 70s, and they've made the decision to transition, and their transition is great. Like the before and after photos are amazing. So like if they can do it, like there's no reason why me in my 40s I couldn't make the same decision too. And I think I just kind of beat myself up sometimes. It's like, no, I wasted half my life. That's not really the case. That's just like my poor perception.
Yeah, sometimes like trans folks will like convince themselves out of like doing things that will ultimately add to their happiness in the end. But it's just like, regardless of what situation you're in, there's always a benefit to embracing yourself and being more yourself, whether that is transitioning to the other half of the binary or going outside of the gender spectrum entirely to something non-binary or else. Like there's always a benefit to the rest of your lived experience, being able to embrace yourself.
Floating Away Today asks if you could say one thing to yourself when you just started transitioning, and I'm going to guess, what would that be? For me, I would say everything's going to be fine. And I know that's like very succinct and short, but like if I could go and like reach back in time and go to day one and just talk to myself for a minute, just be like, just relax. Don't panic as much as you're panicking right now because you're absolutely freaking out, right? It's going to be okay. You're going to be really happy with this decision. Just keep going with it. Like, that's the thing I'd honestly tell myself, right?
The primary thing I would say is I would encourage my younger self to go ahead and come out to her parents and to let her know that it would be safe to do so. It is something that, like, I was entirely within my own head too much at the time, and I let fear, like, keep me, locked down for almost 2 decades, when, I could have like let them know and things would have been so much better. Especially because they made it obvious after a point that, like, they would have been accepting of any alternative identity I might have had.
I also wonder too, and I try not to beat myself up about this too, because I grew up in the 90s, right? And obviously you have some insight into this yourself, right? But it's like, I don't know about you, but I didn't ever hear about anything transitioning when I was growing up. I heard about, like the gay movement, and I heard about like legalizing gay marriage and stuff like that. Like, all of that was on my radar. I remember that being discussed, but very rarely like was anything about like being trans or becoming trans or anything was discussed. Maybe like in some media, but usually it was like the butt of a joke or something.
In my case, it was more that, like, queer stuff entirely was just never brought up. And, like, I don't really blame my parents for this, because it's just like they wouldn't have had a reason to really consider talking about it at all. But, like, I think, like, we didn't have any media that showed trans people or gay people. We didn't have any, like, examples of queer people around us at all. So it's like because of our environment, we considered that, or we got it in our head that, like, oh, it doesn't exist anywhere else because it is so, like, taboo and, like, unthinkable. So, like, this, and my waifu is in chat is saying this is why representation is so important. Exactly. Because, like, as soon as I realized that it was possible and that it was possible to transition safely, like, I couldn't not. I think the only example I had ever heard of when I was back, like, in my preteens was, unfortunately, in a light that cast, like, people who sought, transition as predators, which, is fairly, unfortunately, common occurrence in today's politics still.
Kylie actually brings up a perfect point to segue into. All we hear in the 90s was Ace Ventura, and of course, yeah. Like, the bad guy of that, well, bad guy, right? Bad girl of that film was trans and, like, only did it to, like, hide their identity, and then was also kind of hypersexual about it. It's like not the greatest projection of transgender folks.
So when you only have, like, 2 examples to draw from, and it's those, it makes sense why, this, like, super taboo, like perspective on it is the only thing that ends up existing.
I like every film I remember they had a trans person in, like, it was always like some gross depiction of like I go back to the media that I grew up with and I'm just like, it's not like that. I think the worst one was in Anger Management, that film, the scene where they pulled over and they picked up the trans girl there, and it was just like, I mean, like, I'm not going to get into it, right? But it's like there was nothing accurate about any of that.
Yeah. Manny says, the first time I heard about trans people was a plot twist trans woman in the telenovela, the dumb, oh, dang it, I'm with a trans woman now, the horror. And I remember I was so confused because why was he upset? Right? No, it shouldn't be a problem. It really shouldn't. Kat the Letters says, I always find these stories so interesting. I ended up on the opposite side. I thought that non-binary gender was the norm, San Francisco, California. Oh, I if only I'd grown up in such an environment. Because like the fact is,
sorry.
the moment I met another trans person, like that like opened the door, not because they turned me trans or anything, but just because I saw that what I wanted all along was possible and safe.
Floating Away Today asked, do you have any advice on the "you're faking it" mindset? Self-doubt is staggering in life.
Imposter syndrome is
yeah, I still deal with
brutal.
that sometimes. Yeah. It can be really hard, especially if your mindset is bad. I have some advice. I don't know if you want to go first, Leanne.
I'll just say that like that was the last thing that kept me from transitioning earlier than I otherwise might have, because I met the first other trans person I'd ever met in like 2016, and I admired this person because I felt that it was so brave. But like I kept convincing myself like, oh, I don't feel like what I feel as strongly as she does. So like I can't possibly be like the genuine article of it, right? And I kept convincing myself of that, and it's a lie, you know?
You know what's funny about you saying that is like I kind of felt that way about you when I first like started interacting with you and like following your art and stuff, and it's just like, wow, I want to be an artist too. And it's like, are you just trying to copy this girl? Like right? Especially when I was like starting to have those same questions, and I'm just like, what am I doing?
Having been on that side of it, that definitely makes sense. And like the fact is, you can't like, you can't like grab someone else as like a metric and be like, oh, I have to hit that threshold, because you're just arbitrarily moving the goalpost outside of your own like definitions. The fact is, you have to look inward and decide like, well, would being a different gender make me happier? If so, then it's worth figuring out what ways you need to express yourself differently in order to have that expression.
The one thing that helps me the most with like this whole imposter syndrome thing, because it's not something that's necessarily gone away from me, it's just something that I've learned to like kind of defeat with like the right kind of self-care routine. And this is why I emphasize, like, the first thing I, like, when anybody comes up to me randomly, whether or not you DM me or if you're, like, in, like, the Discord talking to me about this kind of stuff. And we do have a Pride and Shine, like, section in the Discord for anybody who wants to talk about, like, transition and stuff there. But the first thing I ask people is, like, well, what's your self-care routine like, right? Are you doing things that, like, help, like, kind of build up that feminine gender identity? Because like when I first started transitioning, I didn't do any of that, right? I didn't do anything that helped me conform to my own gender. So like when I had those moments in my head where I'm like, you're completely faking it, there wasn't anything else to fall back on that would like kind of fight that feeling. Whereas now it's like all my lotions smell like really pretty and like lovely. I wash my hair with like Pantene Pro V and like really good smelling like shampoo and conditioner, and my soap smells like flowery, right? And these are just like little things, right? But like each little thing helps like kind of tick off like a little bit more of that like you're faking it box. And the more that you can do for yourself and the more consistent you are with your self-care routine and the more things that you do that affirm your own gender, the harder it is to have that like conversation in the mirror where you're faking it, because like the evidence just doesn't really support that. You can look at things in your real life and go, but if I was faking it, why do I have all these things? Why have I been doing all these things all this time?
Because like we get so good at gatekeeping little pleasures from ourselves, and the fact is you are allowed to just do things that just make you feel good, even if it's just like, oh, this is nice. And one thing I want to bring up as a counterpoint to that is, like you were saying earlier, or I think someone in chat was even mentioning, you don't need to overcorrect and be like, oh, I need to be feminine everything. If there's like still a technically like masculine thing you still like doing, that doesn't make you any less of a man or a woman or what have you. And I want to mention this because our trans masc siblings often get forgotten. I've seen examples of, trans men who transition, but they still like doing things like painting their nails just because it's fun. And they do it in ways that they think like helps augment their masculinity more than anything. It's all a performance. You do the things that spark joy for you at every point, regardless of what it is.
I was watching, just to add on to your point, I was watching this video from a trans masc person, and at the beginning of the video, like, obviously they look very masked, their voice has obviously changed, like their entire appearance, like they look very much like the gender they assigned to, and I guess their mother had brought them like a cup of tea, and like all of a sudden they just broke away from that, and they're like, oh, thank you, mama. Like, it was just so adorable to see that for a second, but it goes right back to your point. Like, you don't have to change everything. You don't have to. I made that mistake at first where it's like everything must be feminine. But no, like, and the only reason I bring up the self-care, though, is just like, make sure you're doing things that take care of yourself. The more you take care of yourself, the harder it is to kind of beat yourself up when you have those moments. Whether that be like, changing up and like doing something that's a little bit more feminine, or just kind of just taking care of yourself and better in general.
I think getting into the practice of like, exercising, being kind to yourself, and getting like, more apt to do that, like, goes a long way, especially over time. Like, I can't overstate at all like how much like that is important. There's definitely a lot of value to be had in treating yourself kindly and treating yourself as though like you deserve these little niceties, because you do.
You absolutely do. If you're telling yourself you don't deserve it, that's like, try to break out of that mentality. Try to find one reason why that you actually
That's
do.
just you gatekeeping yourself.
Exactly. And you bring up a really good point with the exercise. I don't see this often enough like discussed in our community, but it's like, exercise is really important for your mental health. If you're not like going out and getting like fresh air at least once or twice a week, or going out on like a half an hour walk, like, consider it. It's like, and I get it. I'm somebody who has like a movement disability, so getting outside for a walk is like a nearly impossible ask for me, but I still do try to get out at least once a week, go to the park, get some fresh air, stuff like that, get as much mobility in. I also got like exercise bands for at home and stuff like that, so I could do some exercising at home if I want to. But like, doing those kind of things will really help with your mental health, and it's just something that will help you also live a healthier life, especially if you're someone like me who's getting into like the later half of their life, right? These kind of things are really important. You have to watch how much sugar you take in, right? Like what kind of food you eat. This all has an impact on your body and your mental health.
Yeah, and exercise doing exercise on the mental health side is also important. Like I was saying, like, the brain isn't, exactly a muscle, but like neural pathways like reinforce themselves, right? So if you engage in self-deprecating humor all the time, it's going to reinforce those habits. So like, again, exercising kindness, at least trying to, is very important. You can't just wait for happiness to happen. On some level, you do have to practice it a bit.
That is such a good way to phrase that. I'm glad you said it that way. You do have to practice being a happier person. It's not easy, because like, even yesterday I had like a little bit of like a dysphoria crash out, and I ended up digging into like, well, here's the thing I did though. I got ice cream. I finally got like lactose-free ice cream. I'm glad I bought it because I needed it. I was upset and I gave myself a treat. And hey, you know what?
Yeah.
Made me feel better.
Sometimes I need to play into the feminine stereotype and just like walk out at, to the convenience store 2 minutes away so that I could get a pint of ice cream that has a bunch of chocolate and peanut butter in it and veg out to a movie or something.
I know, like
sometimes the niceties, it's exactly what you need.
I know it's stereotypical, but like I had that moment yesterday where I'm like, I'm just crying and I'm eating ice cream. And you know what? I feel better now that I did both those things.
Lily, on the quest for the tasty treat. Yes, go on the quest for the tasty treat. It is worth it. And it's not vain. It's not vapid. It's worth it.
And sometimes, like, and this needs to be said, sometimes it's okay to just cry. Like, I think a lot of people, like, feel like they always need to problem solve everything. It's okay to just be upset about your problems. Or even be like, you just got over something, and it's just, it was a lot, it's heavy, and you just need to get it out of your system. That's totally fine. Sometimes you just need to do that. Doesn't necessarily mean something's wrong.
Yeah, and in the same vein as the mental health stuff, it's complicated because like there's the other side of it, right? You can't just bottle things in. So you need to practice being able to be sad, let your feelings kind of just like wash out in a moment, and then be like, okay, I got that all out. It's all processed and expressed. Now I can put it away. And Salskin says, a pint is Leon British? No, it's just rubbing off on me.
I used to work for the alcohol industry, so I'm so used to saying pints. Oh goodness. But yeah, like when I was upset yesterday though, right? Like it's also okay to recognize that you could be a little like unreasonable about like the way you're upset, and it's like not necessarily, I've gotten way better at that too. Like I don't drag myself down when I do that anymore. Like I used to be like, oh God, I'm so ugly, right? And it's like you could say that in the moment, but then like after you're done, you're like, you know what, actually that's not true. I feel better now.
Yeah, I won't go over the specifics of a story, but like I was watching a video yesterday morning before I went to go hang out with Lily. And I was just playing like a clicker game, and like, I was just mindlessly resting. I was playing a clicker game, and I had a video going on the other monitor. And then all of a sudden it got to a story that was an emotional trigger for me. And I had to stop and like put the video playhead back like a minute and listen to the story again. And I went from being there like, not really thinking about anything to sobbing in a couple minutes. And that was a sob that I needed to have. Just like to heckin' just bawl my eyes out and then like let that be expressed before being able to like put that away.
Learning how to cry and get emotions out in a healthy way, and not in a way that like drags anybody else down or anything like that, but just like being able to acknowledge that things are difficult, things are hard. It's okay to cry about it. Crying is very healthy. I used to never cry. Before, and like I'm so glad that I cry now. Honestly, it's a night and day difference in my mental health from like before I transitioned to now, because I don't know how I did it. I honestly don't know how I would just sit there and just never cry about anything that made me sad.
Yeah, and like part of it is like not being on estrogen, but also a part of it is like, at the time before I transitioned, I was not like practicing like mental like happiness or catharsis. Like the only thing that I was practicing was how to not feel anything. And that eventually led us to being so like unfeeling, like as a reinforced habit, that like that in and of itself was depressing. Like the fact that we couldn't feel anything was what was causing us so much turmoil.
Obviously this is specific to me, but I feel like you really nailed it there. Like for me personally, like when I would like start to feel that upset feeling before, I would tell myself like, you cannot cry right now. You will look weak in front of everyone. You just need to suck this up and put on that like extremely like stoic face that you always have. And that is self-reinforcing.
Yeah.
you don't just do that to yourself. You start applying that to other people. And that's where a lot of my like toxic behavior like would come from, because I would then go to somebody else who was upset and I'd be like, well, why are you being so weak about this? And that's not at all fair. That's not a fair thing for me to do to anybody. They're allowed to have their own feelings and emotions about something, even if I don't feel that way.
No, absolutely. And yeah, no, it really, it all reinforces the importance of, you know, the thing is, you're not forcing it when it feels like there's this like stigma of like, oh, feelings aren't genuine unless it's brought up without any effort on your own part. And I think that's led to a lot of this like lack of exercise. Like on some level, you need to actually like, you need to willingly engage with the emotions and like, you know, watch something that is sad and then like let yourself cry. And then like, you know, it'll slowly like come back to you over time. These pathways don't get reinforced unless you actually practice them.
You know, I never used to say good morning to anybody. Like at my old job, when people used to come up to me, they'd be like, oh, good morning, Rain. How are you? And I'd be like, I showed up today. It's just like, it's not healthy, like, to do things. It's not healthy to live like that. And you don't look cool and tough. You just kind of look like an awful person, honestly. At least that's like the way I look at it now. It's just like, that's just not a good way to interact with folks, and it's not bringing positivity.
Lasagna with onions asks, how hard is it to keep positive on stream, Rain?
I personally don't have an issue with staying positive on stream unless something really, 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 really bad happens that, like, obviously I can't ignore. I think I've only been upset on live stream like 2 times, and they were pretty big issues that were going through with my life. And one time I intentionally tried to talk about it with the chat. The other time that it happened was completely unexpected, and the only reason I got on the chat was just to tell people that I'm not going to be like live streaming for a little bit because of like what was going down, and I got really upset during that. But other than that, I go into all of my live streams with a really positive mindset, and I always like try my best not to let like anything deter me from having my good time, because this is for me. At the end of the day, I didn't come here and show up so I could like, you know, for all of you, right? This is for me. At the end of the day, I want to be here, so that's what I guess kind of helps me stay positive about it. And hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I think I would mirror that. Like I haven't, well, at least on our side, we haven't really needed to expend effort to stay positive on stream. It's streaming has been loads of fun. If anything, it's often a recharge point for us nowadays in some respects, even though it does drain battery in others. While we are streaming, it's just like we are in the thick of it, and like often memeing with our chat, like in theater chat is fantastic.
Oh god.
But like stream itself is fine. A lot of the needing to stay positive comes in just trying to get through like the day-to-day like maintenance of all demands in life.
To say that I put on like a persona when I come on to like the live stream would be like disingenuous, because like obviously a lot of you know that I'm very much, you know, I'm not like other VTubers that have like deep lore, right, that I've completely made up. Like a lot of my stuff is like quote unquote soft lore. It's directly related to my life. Like it comes from a source of like truth, but like I do put on like a certain persona, and I expect myself to behave and act a certain way when I put on like the VTuber character, like, you know, costume and come out here. It's like I have a goal, I have an agenda, and I want it to be a positive experience, and I want it to be fun. So anybody who comes into the chat walks away going like, hey, that was interesting for a couple of minutes, or give them a reason to stay because it's like bringing positivity to their life. I never want to come here and either make it all about my problems or talk about stuff that is so negative that you walk away leaving like, oh, I'm really worried. I now have stress about like this political thing or this other issue that we discussed. Like, I don't want my content to ever be a source of like putting somebody in a worse mode. So like, that's like a big goal that I come with when I come on stream.
You know, I would say it's funny because you kind of talked about like the soft lore. I would say that kind of applies for us as well, but it's kind of interesting because it's like it feels like we've never really needed to make up lore about ourselves like others might have had to. Lore kind of has just happened. That's what the rest of our life was. So it's like,
Yup.
it's interesting. It's interesting to see that like, oh, folks have been interested in how we operate. Just because it in and of itself is an interesting story, like us realizing we're trans or us realizing we're plural. It's created enough lore to work on that we don't need to make anything else up.
And I find, at least in my community, a lot of people are interested in like some of the older things I used to do and the perspectives of like what I was before they knew me now. And it's like, it's really hard to like articulate that. Like, and I brought this up a lot of time, and I think people just don't honestly believe me. It's like, I was such a different person in my 20s. I think a majority of you here wouldn't have even wanted to interact with me. Like, you would have just looked at me and just be like, I don't even want to talk to that person, just on looks alone. But, you know, like, I was obviously a very different person back then. I was young, I wasn't smart, and I was, like, really toxic from, like, a lot of the issues that I've already discussed, like, earlier on the stream. And those were things that I specifically wanted to work on as I was like transitioning over to becoming the woman I wanted to be.
It's funny you mentioned that because like that whole feeling of like, oh, who would want to watch me? You know, I feel like that comes from a place where you're probably masking a lot. Cause like there was a big thing this happened more so on Fetty rather than when we started streaming. Although the trend did continue when we started streaming. Without going into the details, we were experiencing a very tumultuous time in our lives when we started our Fetty account. And so, like, at the time we started that account, again, we made a rather radical decision of, like, well, we're just going to lay everything on the line. I am not going to try to filter myself, like, at all. Like, I am putting, like, everything that I am, like, out front and center. And it was so odd because I went from being used to like social media accounts that had like no responses to anything ever. There was never any interest expressed ever to like I made my introduction post on Fetty and immediately got like hundreds of reacts and boosts. And I'm like, it was so surreal having such a black and white, like, oh, I decided to be myself, and suddenly everyone saw like how genuine it was and found it appealing.
You know,
I was like, it was really that easy? What?
It's so true though, and like I brought this up to you in like like a little bit of a personal context, right? But it's like there's a really big dividing line in my life, like before my accident and after my accident. And everything before my accident feels like I was pretending to be this idealized like version of whatever a manly man is supposed to be. And then after the accident, after all the self-reflecting, after like all the time I spent like really thinking about like what I was, that's what I figured out. Like I kind of went back to trying to pretend to be the old me for a little bit. I don't know what it was. I don't know what changed about having the accident, but it just nothing felt like right about that anymore. And like, I'm glad that like I did have that like moment where I can finally like look back on that stuff and like really identify like that like I wasn't being myself. I was just being this pretend version, literally a robot, right? I couldn't even tell Leon when like because I commissioned Leon for my first like YouTube avatar. When she asked me what do you want? I couldn't even tell her what I want. She's like, well, what kind of idea do you have? Like, what do you see yourself as? And I'm like, I don't know, nothing. A robot. Yeah, let's go with robots. Robots seem cool. And I think that was even something you brought up for me. So it's like I couldn't even.
I had to coax that idea out of you.
Yeah, like I couldn't even say one thing about myself that was like really uniquely me, and that was a huge wake up call for me. Even though like it wasn't like, you know, the alarm bells like when my egg broke, but it was like that was like something I walked away from. And I was like, did I really not even know how to represent myself? Like, what the hell? How fake am I?
Leon, did you sense the egg when Rain asked you that? I wouldn't say I sensed the egg, but I saw the masking, I think. And like it boils down to a core question that we end up like asking ourselves, like, you know, I feel like trans people like feel it keenly, like looking in the mirror after all the masking and having to ask very, very seriously, like, who am I? You know? And I think the experience I had on Fetty and what you experienced as well is like you decide to be well and truly yourself, and it goes to show that like people can tell when you're being genuine, and when you are being genuine, suddenly the people come. Like
that's
they come
actually
in droves.
So before I came out as trans, right? Like you're actually nailing it right now, because like, I mean, obviously you know this part about me, right? Like, but I was numbers can be fun for a while and my channel was doing okay, right? But like I had a lot of toxic folks in my community, right? And I was putting up with like a lot of bad stuff there. And after I like changed and completely like finally started becoming myself, the amount of people that flooded the community that were like genuinely liked me, genuinely like saw me for who I was now, like it's a night and day difference. And it's like really that's all it took was just me finally just being honest with myself. And I know it seems like that seems like overly simple, but like sometimes you really just gotta like, this is who I am, and like everything else I was doing was just me pretending to be something I'm not.
There is such a hidden, like almost cheat code factor to like you decide to fully be yourself, and all of a sudden, like everyone sees it. It's like you suddenly have like people are finally noticing out of the blue for what feels like no reason.
I don't want to miss this one. Jessica Fox asks, "Is Leon still doing commissions?"
I am on my stream. I've had all of my art scrolling above my head. I've had put Reigns and some of our Discord members are going too. But if you go to my Blento, which is should be in the doobly-doo. Maybe it might not be in this one actually, but you can go to my VGen, vgen.co/Leon Serenia, and you can commission me there.
I'm going to piggyback off of that and let other people know that I also am doing commissions, but asterisks on the commissions, I take much longer than Leanne does. She has an enormous talent for not only speed, but like for actually making something really good looking. Whereas I can take up to a week and a half sometimes to get a commission completed. So if you are interested, definitely like reach out to me. I have everything set up on my Ko-Fi, or you could just talk to me in my Discord about it. And I will set realistic expectations for you about like how long it will take me to do it. So that way, like nobody's disappointed.
Also, I'm very flattered, but like the speed is like I was very much a perfectionist artist when I was like developing, and like often my pieces would take me like 20 plus hours of work, and it was exhausting. It led to a lot of like lost spoons. The speed aspect of it was something I only really managed to develop in the last couple of years.
That's the big asterisk for me. Well, first things first is like, one, I feel like I'm still kind of in the phase you just mentioned. And two, I really do try to remind myself I've only been drawing for about 2 years now. And you have years and years and years and years of experience ahead of me. But I still compare myself directly to you, even if it's not a fair comparison to me.
Even though I have 10 times the drawing experience in time in years.
I mean, I don't know if you noticed this when I was numbers, right? But it's like after I showed you that like one really bad drawing I did of your like character, the only thing I did was practice to try to get good enough to like make something that didn't look like crap for you.
That's so like again sweet. Like what the heck?
I pointed out to, I don't know if I've ever pointed it out to you, but that first Leah drawing, I was like, I'm never drawing in marker again, right? Because like my drawings come out looking awful that way. And like right after that, I did the first like Ame drawing that was like really good. So like I really took that advice you gave me to heart at that time. And I was determined. I'm like, I'm going to practice drawing and I'm going to redraw one of like Leon's like drawings, you know, and try to make it look as similar to hers as possible. And like I didn't even know I was doing what did you call that? Like master decomposition.
Master study?
Yes. I didn't even realize that's what I was doing by redrawing all the things that I love.
So like you talked about like trying to do that one drawing and you're like, I'm never gonna draw in marker again. That just goes to show that like all of those like quote failed drawings are necessary steps to get from point A to point B where you've learned all these things.
Yeah,
and I will say real quick, I was like setting up the slideshow thing that I got going and I went to go grab all of like Rain's art that she had like posted at least in like her server, and like it goes back like the last like almost 3 years of drawing for her. And like it was palpable when I was like going back and I was seeing the difference between the start and the end to where she currently is.
I mean, like, the drawings looked really bad at first, but I'm glad I posted I still post like pretty much everything. These days I'm a little more picky about like what I put up as like a finished piece. But when I first started, I'm glad I put the scuff up there because I now specifically have something like when somebody goes, I suck at drawing, I'm never going to learn how to draw, right? I actually have not only like good examples of how bad I used to be when I first started, but I can actually point to, and I was like, to somebody recently, I was like, it took me a month and 21 drawing attempts before I drew my first quote unquote, what I consider to be a good drawing, right? So that's like the level of dedication it takes. Like I didn't draw my first drawing and go, wow, I'm an artist, I got talent for this. I had to actually try and fail multiple times before I even produced anything that I thought was decent.
Well, yeah, and you don't just have talent or no, like not really. Like yeah, some folks like learn faster than others, but like talent is just practice that you haven't seen. And like it's one of those things where it's like, again, I was pulling all of like your art that you posted, and like it is so obvious that like, yeah, you could like take any group of like 5 art pieces that you posted close to each other, and yeah, they look pretty similar to each other, like skill wise. But then when you look at it from like month to month, like every few months, there is a noticeable jump in like what you're doing and how many tricks you're employing.
The one thing that I'm very good at doing, and this is why I've appreciated that you've done more drawing live streams. I really wish I had more time in my personal life to just sit around and watch you draw. But like,
it's been so much fun.
It's like, I've always learned by observing, and this was a question that Kenshin just asked too. So like, I'm just going to piggyback off of their question. What would you say helps with learning how to draw? Honestly, observing and just finding things that like, I don't know, that like make me happy about art. Like the thing that's always motivated me was like I'd watch something that somebody else did as an artist, like Leon, for example, and I'd be like, well, how did they do that? And like it's the curiosity of like trying to problem solve for it. And this is something that's kind of hurting me a little bit more these days, but when I first started was like kind of a good thing, was just trying to figure it out on my own. Whereas now I kind of do need a little bit more technical. Like I should really sit down and do more technical stuff instead of just trying to reverse engineer it. But that's like kind of like how I looked at like doing drawings. It's like, oh, here's a really good drawing of Miku. How did this artist put this drawing together? I'm going to reverse engineer it, and I'm going to see if I can even make something that looks at all similar to it. And that was really the goal. And every time I did that, like, I would look at it and be like, yeah, this is kind of close. This is kind of similar to what I was like, what that artist tried to do. That motivated me. That's at least what was the fun aspect of learning how to draw for me.
Yeah. So, like, with the specific question of what helps with learning how to draw, it's largely it's a matter of framing your perspective on what practicing drawing means and putting yourself in the right mindset. And like, I try not to use that too much because like I feel like it's that I feel like mindset is like often a buzzword almost thrown around a lot. But like it is true in this case. Like drawing as a skill is really like 20 other skills in a trench coat that like you don't even know which one you're practicing at a given time half the time. Like there's a skill in being able to observe things. There's a skill in being able to move your muscles to get consistent like strokes on the page and consistent shading. There's skills in finding inspiration and like being able to study other people's works. There's skills in like, you know, relaxation to give yourself like the paradoxical, like, you know, in the zone kind of feeling to be able to draw. It's a lot of things that like you learn bits and pieces of each of those like other skills like over time. And with the mindset thing, you really have to change how you look at things because like the way society is these days, the way culture is these days, a lot of folks try to approach a skill, and if they don't succeed at it immediately, they get angry at themselves because they just expected themselves to just do it. And that's just not how that works. There's not like you drew a drawing, it was bad, you failed. It's okay, you have like, you know, let's say 300 drawings you have to get through in order to get to the point where you are proficient. There is no way you're going to be able to skip those 300 drawings. You have to just do them. And so like, yeah, you have to go through the growing pains of things like not turning out the way you wanted for a while, because it's only by doing those things that you learn the skills in order to do the mastered pieces later.
That you nailed something that's like a big part of like my own personal like motivation and like my own mantra, right? But like I personally love failure because only by failing can you learn actually like something meaningful that you can carry forward into the actual success you eventually have. And I don't know if that's like just a trait I picked up in the military. I'm pretty sure it is, but it's like when I failed and I showed you that drawing, I knew it was a bad drawing. It didn't matter what you told me about it, right? But it wasn't the motivation. Yeah, I didn't let it drag me down and go, I'm never going to be able to do art. I motivated me to do the other 25 drawings to skill up to get to like, not like obviously not your level, but close enough where I could draw something to at least give a poor replication of what your art style is.
Well, and that means that drawing you did, the first one that like, you know, was bad no matter what I said, like it was incredibly valuable because it taught you a lot of things that made you refocus what you needed to work on. That in and of itself was a learning experience.
And like honestly, approaching drawing, and this is something I saw on Reddit. I don't go on Reddit too often, but I was looking for art to like just look at that was just different from like what I see on Fetty normally. So I went to like, I don't know, like / learn how to draw or something, and I saw this like awful thread. And it's the only reason I'm saying it's awful is because the mindset from like OP was really bad. And they're like, I need drawing homework. I need somebody to dictate to me like what lessons I need to be doing because I'm such a terrible artist and I'm never going to blah, blah, blah. And it's like the entire mindset right out the gate was completely wrong. And like, I did comment on that post and I was like, really, the only thing you need to do is just draw and just draw something that you like drawing. That's it. Everything else you pick up in the process of doing that, you're going to end up practicing things you don't even realize you're like actually like building a skill on just by doing something and having a good time doing it. So if you're not enjoying it, how are you supposed to learn anything, right? Like I've only made the progress on learning things when I have a good time, I don't know, taking it in.
Yeah, and there's one aspect of it that like I would also like to touch on in that regard. I want to read it. Leica is saying, I always compare learning art to roguelikes, all the skills born from failure. Absolutely. And to add on to that, there is another stereotype of artist that is trying to learn where they do keep practicing and practicing and practicing, but they feel like they hit a plateau, right? They feel like they've hit a plateau for months. And like that ends up being a sign that you often need to look out for, where it's now time to work on analyzing things and trying to really like dig down and study what your weak points are, like whether it's your line work or your shading or your forms or what have you, and practicing different things. Because like I don't know how many times I've seen people like, you know, follow the same tutorial and they learn really well how to draw a face at a 3/4 angle, but then can't draw a face at any other angle. You know, you have to actively look for where the blind spots are too, because it's not always obvious.
Oh, one thing I will bring up, because like there's going to be a lot of people who will sometimes throw tomatoes, like rotten tomatoes, at you. This happens in anything, like with live streaming, YouTube, right? This happens with anything you do. You put yourself out there. There's going to be one person in the background who's going to throw a rotten tomato at you. Don't take the bad part of their criticism seriously. If anything, like what I do when that situation comes up, right, is try to look at the constructive portion. And sometimes there isn't. Sometimes they're just being completely unreasonable with something they said. Like if somebody was just like, you suck at drawing, right? There's nothing to like reflect on there. They're just being mean. So it's like you could just kind of kindly ignore anything that they said there and just disregard it, right? But if somebody's like, wow, you really suck at like drawing straight lines, right? Well, I'm going to ignore the first half of that and go, well, maybe I should take a quick little look at, like, you know, am I doing my lines better or not? So, like, try not to, like, take anything too personally there. I think I'm better with that kind of stuff than most people, and I don't really let anybody try to, like, hurt me with their words. I really do try to look, okay, maybe they have somewhat of a little bit of a valid point that I could work on, but I try to take the constructive portion out of that criticism whenever I can and just leave the garbage out of that, because everybody's just there's gonna be people out there just always have nothing nice to say.
Yeah, and like one thing that I have run into as well is sometimes like those comments left in bad faith. Like I had a instance of this happen like not too long ago, where sometimes it is just projection and like their criticisms are completely unfounded. They're just using you as a punching bag. And in that case, like, yeah, what they're saying isn't worth the pixels that it's printed on.
I get this a lot, like, too. Like, this used to happen more, like, a long time ago, but I used to get the most, like, horrible, like, transphobic comments on this channel. And it's like, you can't let that stuff drag you down, right? You can't let some random person, because anybody can have a YouTube account, right? Anybody could sign up for a YouTube account and they could say anything they want on your video. You can't let their 3 seconds of hatred drag you down into like a bad mental health state. You just got to ignore it. And that's my best advice for anybody who's like wants to put themselves out there, but they're worried about that stuff. Like, know when to like safely ignore the bad faith comments.
We all need a little treat for this good conversation. Yeah, we do. I need some ice cream.
Oh goodness! I ate all my ice. I ate an entire quart of ice cream in 2 days. I'm so embarrassed.
Remember that one random person from one of your art streams? I think we're thinking of the same person, Maddie. I was just mentioning them before. Like they were completely acting in bad faith, and we looked at their channel like later, and we think that they were completely projecting and were mad that they didn't have the viewership that I did.
I did the one thing that like we had somebody do this the other day. Like they came into my stream, and they're like, "I'm not gay. I believe in God," and I'm like, "Get out of here!" Like I'm sorry, but like. No, that's like a terrible way to introduce
that
yourself
part's
here.
not even true anyway. Because like, like they aren't even following their own book like properly if that's what they're
That
arguing.
is literally what I said. And I'm like, if you really feel that way, why don't you just turn thy cheek, right? Just turn thy cheek. You didn't even have to come here. Why are you interacting with something that you don't believe in, right? Like, I don't know. I don't understand why people would do. I don't go out of my way to go into, like, I don't know, Bible sermons and be like, I'm trans. Everybody should believe in trans stuff here, right? Like, I don't know. I don't understand that mentality from those folks.
Well, it's because like there's this specific group of people that use religion as their rallying cry to heckin' muster up a crowd to hate things because it's politically expedient for them.
I know this is oh, go ahead.
The stereotypical like version of Christianity is often the cudgel is different from like the folks that are just practicing what their book says.
Maybe I have a poor perspective of this because my mom has obviously been like a very liberal person, but she believes in God. Like, she is religious, but like, I don't know, she still imparted those same values on me, right? Of like, accept people for who they are, be kind to them, turn thy cheek, right? Like, I thought those were the morals that like we are supposed to do here, not like judge people for their personal life decisions. I don't know if it's just her interpretation or if she's just got a better view of it than most folks, but like, I kind of assumed that like that was the whole point of believing in something like that, right? Is because you wanted to have positive values.
Well, like, yeah, and that's what I mean. There's two different like schools of thought, so to speak. Like, yeah, there's folks that are just like reading what the book says and being like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Be like kind and all that. Cool. And then there's like, you know, the very loud like political force that is co-opting it. And that's what I think most people like have to are unfortunately forced to interact with in their day-to-day lives.
I think
is the whole like political brigading and using independent.
I think Thomas says it pretty well here. If you believe in God, that's fine, but don't make it everyone else's problem. I'm just going to steal a George Carlin quote here and just be like, yes, keep thy religion to thyself.
Mm-hmm.
That's honestly the best policy, right? Also,
I very much again.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, like I say, very much against both guys. It's probably best not to talk about it on stream. You know, I'm only like fine with the folks that like genuinely believe like what you know the actual tenets of their book, because it's one of those things where it's like, you know, some folks find comfort in having that explanation of what happens like after everything is said and done. I don't need that, but like it brings some folks some comfort. What I don't like is when forces then use that whole belief system as a cudgel.
Yeah, I'm gonna pretty much say I'm piggybacking right off of like Leon's answer here. I don't like when it's used as a cudgel. Other than that, I believe that anybody can believe in like what they want. Right? Like, it's like kind of the same thing with like transitioning. If it's part of who you want to be, then that's fine. Just don't weaponize it against anybody else, right? Same thing like on our side, right? You can't weaponize, like, because we have that like issue a little bit sometimes in our own community, like, and you can't do that. That's not cool, right? Like, we have to be respectful of each other.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and like I'm not saying that though, like, you know, it's like a 50-50 split. The forces that co-opt it are vast. There's a reason why that's the only part that most folks are familiar with.
I'm just glad that I live in an area where most of the religious organizations here are very much on board with the LGBTQ you know, like community. They're fine. It's not really an issue here. Like, do we have folks like that in my area? Yeah, I've seen them. They still show up to the parades. They're like the one or two people that are holding up like the sign saying like God like doesn't like this or whatever they had to say on their stupid signs, right? But like there's such an exception, at least where I live. So I don't know, maybe I get like a false perspective every once in a while because of that.
Yeah, it really is hard to escape. Like, it is strange, but I have met a Christian trans woman before. That was odd, but it,
I mean,
it's hard to imagine how you land on such a place. But
I personally like. Well, I've always like, even when I was younger, I like this happened when I was very young, but I had that conversation with my mom a long time ago, where I'm like, I'm not really religious. I know you gave me this book and you've been bringing me to church, right? And it's just like, this isn't for me. I don't really believe in this stuff. And she was a little upset at it at first, but like, I'm really glad that my mom was just like, it's your life. You do what you want, and I'll just pray extra hard for you.
like I feel like that's respectful.
Yeah, like she did want me to become Baptist. Like to say that part wasn't true. Like that's the part that upset her. It was like she really had an expectation that her children would follow in her religion, but it's like at the same time when both of us decided that that wasn't the right thing for us, she still accepted it. And I wish more parents would have that mindset with their children. I didn't realize how lucky I got with my mother.
It's amazing how far like just understanding other folks may believe differently goes.
It's especially hard too because like obviously I'm not a parent. I'm probably never going to be like a true parent, right? But it's got to be especially hard when you've put in the emotional investment of raising your children, right? And that they like for the first time come up to you and be like, actually, I believe something that's completely different from like everything you've taught me. Like that's got to be hard for a parent to go through. It's not a perspective I've ever had, and I probably won't ever get to experience that side of it like she did.
Mm-hmm. It's not something that I can say I quite understand because I've never needed those explanations to like, you know, to feel like I understand like how I need to navigate the world. I've been happy enough in just knowing who I am and like being able to trust in the things I can observe.
I mean, that's what it's always boiled down to me is I just like to go off of observations. What can I hear, see, taste, smell? That's the most real thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm just a simple girl.
I had a relationship with a Christian trans woman and I was her gay awakening. It is so strange, like kind of like veering off of that. How much like, especially after joining Fetty and starting streaming, how much like I've had several people now talk about like, yeah, no, you're the one that made me realize I was trans. It'd be like, wait, really? I was kind of just here in the background.
I've said that to you a few times too, and I'm like, you inspire me, Leon. And it's like, I don't think you even understand, like, when I first said that, why. I mean, now you do, but. But I mean, I basically did that to you. I was just like, you're my inspiration. I want to be an artist, and I want to be a woman too.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're definitely one of them. And it was far from the last one.
It happens a lot in my community now, and I'm like, it always blows my mind. Anytime somebody comes out in our community or comes talks to me or was like, you're the reason why I finally was able to do this, and it's just like I have the same reaction to you. It's like, really? Me of all people? I was the one who inspired you to do that?
It feels so weird, right? And it's one of those things where it's like, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking like, it doesn't make sense. I'm not special. Like I'm just a trans girl. And then like, but like I have to sit back and realize like, wait, that was the exact same thing that I was saying to like the first trans person I met. And like that's one of those moments that makes me have to sit back and realize like, well, yeah, I have to trust what people are saying when apparently I was the inspiration. I never imagined it, but like, okay, I'm happy for you.
Rain, do you remember when we had to teach you to nya? Yes, I do. I remember
Yeah.
I used to say naya.
Naya.
Naya. Naya. Nya. Oh God, I can't, like, now I cringe at it. I'm gonna have to find clips of me doing that. Someday I
Ian
need
also
to...
helped me realize my
Oh, go ahead.
transness. Like, yeah, Maddie was one of them. We also helped with the realization for being plural.
Thomas said, someday I need to start making actual videos. This is something that I tell people a lot. Well, one, you'll start when you're ready, and two, the best time to get started is honestly today. Once you know you're ready to do something, like a lot of people just put off like starting their dreams, right? And they're like, oh, but I need a drawing pad to start drawing, and I need these fancy pencils, and I need to get art supplies. And it's like, you don't need to do any of that. Like, my first drawing was a Sharpie I stole from work and some printer paper, right? Like, you don't need to have, like, a setup. Like, I think a lot of people put, like, hurdles in their way that aren't real hurdles. Like, they just go for it, and it doesn't matter if it's perfect. Just the best thing you could do is just get started and just keep it going from there.
Oh, yeah. But based on the last conversation, I want to touch on this real quick before it goes away. Leica says, the self doesn't exist in a vacuum. We see ourselves reflected in each other. Hence how trans people help each other by realizing things about themselves. And I think that's the thing where it's like, it's hard to see as the person that is the object of inspiration, but like, it definitely makes sense. And then also to what you were saying, yeah, we talked about it earlier. I think I even mentioned it earlier in stream. There's a certain factor of like, if you think you want to do something, you can't fret over it being perfect. You might have this like big magnum opus idea like in your head of like how to make a perfect version of that idea. And that's just like a trap to never starting. Like with art, with making videos, it doesn't matter what you're doing. On some level, you need to just start doing it, and you need to make it exist, even if it's bad, because that's the only way you start developing those skills and start being able to make it better later. I've been wrestling with this because I was telling Rain just before we got on stream, I have this like video idea I've been thinking of doing for like the past, like ever since the year started, and I keep thinking of like how I want to like do it, like all the fine details. And I'm realizing at some level I need to just sit down and just start writing the script and start just putting something together, even if it's not exactly how I envisioned it.
I mean, yeah, honestly, it's like if you go back and you look at it, and like I have a lot of like all my numbers can be stuff is members only now, just because I don't want that to be the first representation new folks see of me as like the old me. But like if you do go back and watch like those older videos, right? Like I didn't even know what Luanti and Vox Libre were until like the 5th video on my channel. The thing I started doing was downloading Linux software and just making videos about that because I thought it was cool. I had no idea what I even wanted to make my content about. I just fell into it, and it was only by actually starting that I figured out what I really wanted to do. So sometimes you just won't even know until you actually put something out there.
Like, yeah, you need to just, if you have an idea for a project that you've been like kind of thinking of doing and you can't quite like muster up the motivation, but you do want to do it, like on some level you have to just produce it, and even like produce it in a way that's like maybe not up to the lofty ideals you might have had, because as soon as you make it exist, you can then like take the learning experience to learn how to make the next thing better.
My first live stream on this channel was OpenTTD, and it was awful. It's really, I barely speak, and when I do speak, it's like the most basic commentary on what I'm doing. It's really bad. But hey, I mean, I obviously now I don't have that problem.
Yeah, no, I have an example for this, like both when I started streaming and generally, as well as even just today. Like the very first time I decided to start streaming, I was like, okay, you know what? Heck it, I'm going to finally do this. I'm going to heckin' use like PNG Tuber Plus. I'm gonna draw something. I'm gonna put all the pieces together. Like I was maybe like 85% satisfied with how it all came together, the drawing. And like there are parts of it that looked a little jank, but I'm like, you know what? This is fun. I liked like how it came together, and I was able to express myself. I put together the first PNG Tuber model. I slapped it in OBS and started playing Celeste, and it was surprising how much that like folks started coming and watching, and I started having a lot of fun streaming. And then like even today, I'm like, oh right, like I should be doing a lot more. I need to like change how I like my first stream didn't even have a chat overlay. I literally just slapped my model on top of it and called it good.
I remember those.
And then like even just today, I'm like, I need to finally do something that's not just like the most basic chat overlay that I have ever had. So I got a thing like literally like heckin' like 6 hours ago. And I went like combing through CSS to try to just put something together. And now I'm much happier with what the tech has been put together. And I kept having this idea of I wanted to have little slideshows of my art and art from folks from my channel like scrolling by, and I wanted it to be this whole carousel thing. But like, you know what, like in order to make something happen, I just used just the basic slideshow source in OBS, and it's there. There's a thing that's there now. I scribbled a quick thing in Krita for like labeling the nameplates on all of us in the stream, and now it's here. Now I can like focus on how to make the finer details better later.
Exactly. It's a huge process. And one thing I want to say too is when you start doing this, right? And like this happened to me because I almost gave up. You like be ready to like nobody interacted with my content at first, right? It's one of those things where if you really want to do this, the reason you're showing up is for yourself. And I mentioned that before. But when nobody's watching, right, and that used to be a very harsh reality for me. Like when I first started, nobody would watch. I could sit there and stream an entire stream and not a single person will stop by the stream, wouldn't chat, wouldn't say anything. I'd have 0 minutes of watch time, right? And that can feel very defeating if you go in with the mindset that you're just trying to like grow your channel or something like that. But I had to be reminded by one of my friends, it's like, you're just there to play a game and have a good time with the game. So just focus on that. Who cares about the rest of it? Who cares if anybody ever watches it ever, right? And as soon as I shifted my thinking towards that, not only did I have more fun like coming to these streams and doing the things that I want to do, right? But more people, I think, saw a more genuine side of me and actually probably wanted to give the streams a chance. So try not to let stuff like that bother you. And just remember, you're doing it for you at the end of the day. And none of the numbers matter. Like after like doing this for as long as I have, none of the numbers really matter as long as you walk away from the experience being more positive and having a good time.
Sorry, I'm messing with something real quick.
You're fine. I'm just going to read a comment rail here. So Cribia says, here's the first community where I can relate with all my life. Thanks, Rainen. Aw, that's very sweet.
Heck yeah.
I'm really proud of the community. This is a good opportunity because I mentioned this in the Discord yesterday, but I like anytime I talk to anybody who's like outside of our community, like in my real life and stuff like that, I tell them that we have a really good, healthy community here. People are very positive. People are here to like support each other. And I've made this observation because it's even happened in my own community when I used to be cis, right? I used to have a toxic community, and I'm really glad that it's in a much healthy place because like it allows folks like you to come in and be able to, be yourself now, right? I've worked really hard on that, so thank you. I'm really glad that you enjoy it.
And similarly, like I was saying, meeting you all has resulted in a very silly and fulfilling sequence of domino effects. I'm much more open now, maybe a bit too open. Like, yeah, that's one thing I've really enjoyed about our own community as well. we've gotten a bunch of like in jokes. We were talking about lore earlier, and like there's this like running joke in my community about deep fryer theory. It's just like this nonsensical idea that just gets called to without ever being explained. And like I'm always like trying to encourage folks to try to be their most authentic selves, like experiment with different pronouns, experiment with different modes of expression. It feels like folks have like really figured out who they are in our server, and we're also encouraging them to like, better take care of their mental health and get into art or whatever else they want to practice. And like, it's been, I can honestly say I am so proud of everyone in our community as well. It has been amazing to see.
It really shouldn't be understated, because like I've watched other like live streamers. I've tried to like go into their servers, into their communities, and I will say this, more often than not, I see the community not always being the greatest to the content creator. Sometimes like, and maybe like obviously each content creator has like their own lines that they draw in the sand, but it's like some of the stuff that I see like hurled at the content creator just doesn't feel respectful like towards that person, right? And it's like, I really can't understate like how good the community has been towards me and towards like everybody else who wants to participate in the community, because I see a lot of like really bad toxicity out there, and I'm just glad that it's no longer part of like, it's no longer part of anything that I oversee anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I remember recently watching a video from this one content creator that I was subscribed to, and they're like a little bit bigger than me, maybe like 15, 20K. And they literally had to come out and just be like, hey, chat, could you not like comment like about me in this way anymore, because it's disrespectful. And I just like, you're all taking it like way too far. And it's like, I'm glad I've never had to have any of those kind of conversations with anybody here, right? Because you all know how to be respectful right off the bat.
Well, and like one thing I feel like I've experienced on my side, like pretty keenly, is like we've really developed a kind of rapport where it's like, yeah, we're open enough that it's like, well, if something does bother me, I can like say something, and people like know that I mean it in like good faith. Be like, yeah, we can come to this new understanding now, right? Right? Okay, cool, and we move on.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
Everybody just rolls with that.
It should just be that easy.
It really should be. It shouldn't, like, I kind of feel bad that content creator had to make an entire video addressing it, right? Like, it shouldn't ever get to that level. It should just be something that's like, hey, that's not exactly cool. And everybody's like, all right, cool. And they just change their behavior.
Leica says the communal delta is mutated in a different species endemic to the theater. Banui Lily examining how Banui schematics tie into deep fryer theory. No, that they've been activated again. ACE says we have a non-existent wiki as well. Right, yeah. Although we keep thinking we might need to make the wiki a thing.
A wiki wouldn't be a bad idea. The problem is like, I always think of like ideas like that, and then I have zero time to actually participate or do anything with it. Like, I barely keep on top of my own stuff.
Oh yeah, if we were to set up a wiki, I would heckin' like nominate a few different people to manage it, and they can like create all the pages and such.
Well, in our community too, like I have a couple of folks that are interested in doing a Vox Libre wiki, and it's just like, I want to help, but it's like I don't have time to go through something. I really don't. I love that people want to do it. I just like, maybe in the future I'll have a little bit more time, but it's like I don't even know where to get started with something like that. I'm glad I can create a space for you all to work on it though.
No, absolutely.
Let's see.
Did someone say wiki? Sorry, I heard the dog rustle from across the studio.
Marshala says the whole perception of self and how society sees you is a common theme in a lot of like really good stories, some of which are particularly popular among trans people, like Serial Experiments Lane. I'm actually not familiar with that. Are you familiar with that one?
I've heard the name of the show, obviously, but I have not seen it. I'm more interested in seeing it now because there's another trans like YouTuber that I watch that does fantastic video essays on anime, and talks about it a little bit. And it's like, oh, I feel like I've got to go like see this now and like intake it.
I feel like I'm gonna have to add that to my watch list too, because I've heard it a couple of times, but I'm gonna be real, I don't know like pretty much anything about that at all. But I keep hearing a few things about it. Now my curiosity has piqued.
Mm. Lane mention. The heckin' translating in chat is killing me.
Oh, I know. Do you know how many some of the like nya and stuff like that gets translated into completely like normal words, and it throws me off like depending on like if I'm reading what's on screen or versus like what's in OBS.
No, I see that little symbol next to the message to say it got translated, and I feel like I can't trust anything that it says.
Yeah, I'm like very like it translated something into like I don't know. So like somebody came in and like completely translated everything to like the opposite of what they were saying, and I ended up reading it.
Yeah, no. The entire time we were playing Amori, people would be jumping into chat and like saying Amor, and like it would keep translating as murder.
Oh no. Floating Away Today asks, we have a fear of trying to be ourselves just to discover we hate who we are, or that at our core we're a horrible person. Is that something that you have experience with? I can make some comments on this because I used to have like a really bad like perception of myself, especially before coming out. And here's the thing. Was I a horrible, nasty, awful monster that I like imagined myself out to be? No, I never was, right? Like, were there things about me that obviously needed to change? Yes. But like, here's the thing, like the thing that I would recommend that you do with that perception is to try to, instead of beating yourself up over it, like really look at like what the core issues are that you really are uncomfortable about yourself and try to work on them. Like, right? Like, if it's like just being kinder or being more understanding, right? Or if it's like the way you interact with people, these are all things that you can make adjustments on slowly. And just because you have been doing them for X amount of time, it doesn't dictate that you are the monster that you may believe you are. Even if you've had like really human moments, like I also brought this up the other day too. Like we all on the internet project the best version of ourselves out to everybody, right? Everybody does it. Obviously, as a content creator, I only want you to see the best version of me, right? But like, we're all human. We all can get super emotional. We can get a little bit unreasonable sometimes. We can get overly mad about things like when they're not that big of a problem, right? And you really can't just like beat yourself up and call yourself a monster just because you acted human for a few minutes. Like, it happens. We all kind of lose our shit sometimes, and like bad things happen, and we just have to recognize like what was it that led to that situation unfolding and how can we do better next time. Hopefully that helps you out.
And it feels like this whole framing of like, oh, what if I decide to be myself and I learn something I don't like? It feels so static the way that that's being thought of. Like the fact is, like, a lot of us, like, say, like me, like, it's hard for any trans person to avoid having a lot of, say, internalized transphobia. And there are certain parts where it will have to be worked through. You'll have to realize that, like, oh, that way of thinking is silly, or, you know, those aspects of yourself are, like, actually good and valuable, actually. Or, you know, realizing like, oh, that comes from a place of like, you know, fear of like rejection or fear of something else, or who knows. Like, I feel like there is so much more value to be had in actively doing the experimentation, figuring out like where those problem spots might be, and then using that as a excuse to be like, well, now you know what problems to work through, what problems to process, right? It's not like it doesn't have to be a like, oh, I found out something terrible, now everything is ruined. It's just it's you're going along the next step of the process of processing everything.
I'll give a really good example, and this was like way before like I came out, like way before my accident, all of this. Back when I first was like kind of starting to learn about this stuff, right? I made a really stupid assumption. I used to think that they, them was the appropriate way to handle when you didn't know somebody's gender, and I used to do it all the time. Anytime I came across a trans person or somebody that I couldn't like immediately identify, I just switched to they, them pronouns and just roll with it. And it only took somebody like pulling me aside one day and just being like, you know, that's a little offensive that you do that, right? Like you're just assuming somebody's gender that way. I didn't even realize it. And like my first reaction to it was like to look back to all the times that I'd ever done that to somebody and go, oh my God, you monster. Like you just like terrorized this person by assuming their gender. One, I can't make the assumption that they felt any particular way about it. They might have been annoyed by it. Like that could be real, right? But like doing that and not knowing any better doesn't make me a monster. It's like what I choose to do now that I've like learned about it.
Well, yeah,
That's the difference.
it came from a lack of understanding, and like I feel like it came from a decent place. It was out of wanting to not disrespect people, but it does run into the issue you learned is that it can in fact degender people, which can also be unfortunate in some ways.
Do you know where that conversation actually happened?
Where?
So like I said, I used to work for the alcohol industry a long time ago, and one of my accounts was a LGBT place, and I'd go in there and I would never know who I was dealing with, so that's why I would did it. And like the owner one day, like it was just basically me and them in there, and they were the ones who like brought it up to me, and they're like, listen, you seem really nice. Can we just talk about that for a second? I'm glad they did though. I'm glad they mentioned it to me because like I don't want to go in there and like make people uncomfortable, right? Like I'm there to like support their business and like help them out. Like I don't want to be like that, you know? It did make me feel very bad, but it's like kind of to the point like you can't beat yourself up and call yourself a monster for doing stuff like that, especially if you didn't know any better and you made efforts afterwards to do the right thing.
It definitely seemed like they pulled you aside in she probably doesn't know kind of
that honestly was like
sense,
yeah.
rather than thinking you're actively trying to like disrespect people.
Well, they could tell how nervous I was, and I used to get really nervous around like the LGBT. Like now I understand why, but like I'd get really nervous, especially around trans women. I used to not understand why I would get like that. Now I do. But it's just funny, like thinking back to those moments in my life, and it's like, why was I like that?
Miss Lee and Miss Rain, you're so cool on the TV at the opposite side of the world. Oh, this is so incredibly kind floating away today. Thank you.
Also, I know I haven't commented on it too much, but thank you all for sending in those little like chat gifs. I see them. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I was wondering what those were. Like, those are fun. Although I'm realizing that my particular CSS breaks with those.
So apparently, you do get I'm not going to oversell it, right? Like, but apparently that all, because I was wondering where all that stuff goes. YouTube just gives you a couple of cents every once in a while for like the volume of like stuff that they send in for you on that.
Huh.
Yeah, I thought like you get like a collection of gifts somewhere, like from the community, like which would have been a cooler way for them to handle it, but like I don't know. I'm not happy with YouTube's like decision there. I would have liked to have like a page where it's like, here's all the gifts from like the chat from the community.
Lily says maybe we'll troubleshoot it later. I'll show you how it got put together later. So you can maybe like figure that out.
I got a goat trophy. Oh, that one was animated. Oh, that's really cute.
Saying Rain's the goat.
We're actually floating away. Today's name used to be Escape Go, and I used to call them that all the time. Like the entire thing, I'd read it completely out.
Yuri troubleshooting.
It is really bad in terms of split. What do you mean by that, Gombek? Sorry. I'm going to need some more context there. I guess with like the last half an hour that we have, because we are probably going to wrap this up in about 30 minutes. If anybody has any other questions, if we missed over your question, or if there's just something that you wanted us to talk about, but like we didn't get a chance to get to it, this is the best time. In either chat, bring it up. We would be happy to go over it.
Someone used the points I collected, which is exactly 1,000, and the goat was worth 1,000. Fair enough.
Perfect. Hey, look, that lined up perfectly. It's so weird because they show up in my thing like I got a super chat. They just like they kind of hang around. Also, usually the animations with my CSS usually show up, but I had to like drop the screen down to fit your chat on top of mine. So like the animation for it played underneath your chat.
Leon and Rain, why are you so cute? You're mistaking the cuteness of both of us for what is actually the cuteness for Rain.
I think you're projecting there, Leon. Listen, listen. You've been cuter longer than me. Just based on length of time here, right? Oh, goodness. The cutie denial.
Although knowing me, I'm going to think of a question literally the auto-second stream ends. Isn't that a mood, though?
That happens to me all the time. I'm like, oh, finally, my turn to ask a question. And they're like, okay, we're wrapping up. Have a good day, everybody.
Like how the classic move is to double check over your post that you've drafted like 3 times, and then only the millisecond you hit send, you realize there's a typo.
Oh God, I do that all the time and I hate it. I'm so glad that Fetty has like an edit and delete button.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
It drives me nuts.
Why are these like heckin' things so invisible for everything except for, when you actually send it?
The thing for me too, and this happens to me a lot, I tend to think faster than like even I can process like what I'm trying to say or type sometimes, and I end up skipping entire words out of my sentences, and even if when I'm reading them back, because I'm reading it back so quickly, I miss the words still. Question for Rain, is Leon cute? If you want my opinion, I'd say like Leon is definitely like one of the cutest trans girls I've ever met. Though I don't think she's gonna agree with me on that statement. Uh-oh.
No.
There we go. I think you got muted for a second. Uh-oh. We might have some technical difficulties with Leon.
Is Leon muted? No, Bluetooth disconnected.
Okay, there we go.
I cannot hear.
So did you hear me call you, like, absolutely cute when Just Ones and Zeros asked me? Look, she's speechless, chat. This is the best time to call her cute. She can't deny it now. Everybody pile in. Cute disconnection. I know. She Oh, goodness. The denial was so hard, she actually lost connection to the stream. Kitty cute. Wait, that means that I'm cute. She's a dragon girl. Well, we'll give that a couple of minutes to see if like I don't know if I've got to do something with like my. I think everything like for the voice. I don't know. I don't know what to do here. Hold on. I'll just send her a message.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Hi. All right. Well, so while Leon is still working through her technical difficulties, hi Nuki, hi Baytran. Anything else anybody wants us to go over? Anything you're curious?
We're back.
There we go. I told everybody to call you cute while you couldn't defend yourself.
I saw everyone being like, quick, get her while her defenses are down. I am not. No.
She misread
Absolutely
cute as
not.
mute.
You know, I'm not cute. I'm mute by now.
Ooh, Baytran asked tips for dating a transgender girl. Ooh. I honestly, I'm not gonna have any advice here. I'm gonna default to Leon.
Dating a trans girl, I will say I'm probably not the best person to ask for this, being incredibly neurodivergent and not with a ton of dating experience. I've only ever had 2 relationships, my ex and now Lily, who is my wife. We connected because we very much understand like each other's experiences very well. It lets us have like a lot of context into each other. We're able to understand things that like most other folks in our lives simply don't, which helps a lot. The best thing I can say is like just practice like some empathy in the idea that like someone who is trans is likely going to be self-conscious about the way they present, whether they flip enough like masculine or feminine or non-binary flags. They want to be seen for who they are, and they want to be accepted for who they are. And so like if you could remember to like, you know, to keep that in mind and to see them for them, and I think they will end up appreciating that a lot.
I will say, all right, here's the thing. I don't have advice, but like just to kind of piggyback off of what Leon said here, that is like, I haven't had a relationship since I've come out, right? Like, and obviously I identify as demi-romantic and asexual. So like the whole dating scene for me is difficult. And then add on like my disability, being in a wheelchair, that adds like a whole another layer on top of what was already a difficult like setup for that. Like, but what I will say is I do very much want somebody who's going to be very understanding, not only of like my physical limitations, but like obviously like of all the stuff that's related to like my personal identity as well. And I don't ever want to be in a relationship where somebody would use something like that to like to weaponize it against me. I've been in those kind of relationships. I've been in a really long-term relationship where my former partner used to use things about me as like weapons against me. Like I'm too fat or I'm out of shape or I look stupid, right? Like I don't ever want to be with somebody like that ever again. Like if they're ever saying something like that to me again, that's just like a no-go for me. That would be like an instant breakup for me. And I think it's one of those things where it's like, you know, have a conversation because every trans woman is different and they're going to have different things that bother them. Like some trans folks are going to be okay with you making certain types of jokes and other trans folks are going to be like completely horrified that you made the same exact joke. So I think it's like really just like observing and also asking the right questions about like what they're comfortable with.
You know, check in with them, like have the conversation and see like, you know, how they feel about particular subjects. You know, it's like, you know, it can just be the form of like, you know, maybe you say a joke off the top of your head because it felt natural. And maybe you just say like, oh, hopefully that's not like, disrespectful, let me know if it is. Like everyone's fallible. And ACE says something. Neurodivergent dating is apparently fairly different in how it presents compared to quote normal/average relationships. I would say that's definitely true. I feel like my particular experience is much more heavily colored by the fact that I am neurodivergent more than that it's colored by the fact that I am trans. Like, yeah, that presents its own unique challenges as well. But like, for me, dating ends up being more about sharing, special interests, being able to talk deeply about certain subjects and like hang out and do things that like fall outside of the norm for like what is socially considered like date material, Like, yeah, Lily and I do some like, stereotypically romantic things, but also a lot of our relationship is sharing in whatever media we're hyperfixated in a particular moment, or like working on mutual goals together, doubling on projects together, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, I guess the best summary is I would just want to be treated like a regular girl.
Yep.
Yeah, as long as you're not like doing anything outside of that, like I think that. I mean, but I just don't have enough experience to to speak more on it.
Mm-hmm. And like specifically on the neurodivergent side of things, often neurodivergent people understand other neurodivergent people. The line of communication is pretty solid there, as well as neurotypical folks talk with neurotypical folks fairly like solidly. There can be a breakdown of communication when you cross those two lines. It is hard for a neurotypical to understand a neurodivergent and vice versa.
Delta asks a really good question here. If you were raised as if you were a man, what happens to that while/after you transition? Do you kind of keep the things that work and throw away the rest? Does it work against you in the process? So something that comes up a lot, at least for me anyways, is imposter syndrome, where it doesn't matter what I've done, or like it still happens to me sometimes. It happens way less frequently than it used to, but it's really hard sometimes to still like see myself the way that everybody else sees me today, because I do tend to hold on to some of those things, right? It's like even the other day when I was talking about on stream, and I did this on live stream, right? I was talking about a story from when me and my half-sister were really young. And the entire story, I misgendered myself. And I kept referring to myself not only as my old, like my old pronouns, but I also referred to myself as brother. Like, so I didn't even switch out like what I am now, right? And it's like, it's really hard to like change some of that sometimes. Like you do hold on to like a lot of those old habits, especially if they're things that happened way in the past, and like when you go back to remember it, right, that's how it actually was. It's really hard to change your perception on that, but the important thing is to not beat yourself up over it. I think there was like a really funny YouTube short that I watched, and it was like about like misgendering yourself. I'll have to post a link to it. It's really funny, but it's like, don't make a big deal out of it. It happens all the time. I don't know if that's exactly what you were talking about, but that's stuff that happens to me a lot.
Yeah, and I would say, you mentioned, do you kind of keep the things that work and throw away the rest? That is fairly accurate to the experience. Like, you're going to have picked up a lot of habits of like masking in particular, and it's the same thing that kids just do naturally with their parents. The kids look to their parents as an example, and there is always this process of keeping what they do like and what they don't like for how they move forward. And the same thing kind of happens in transition. Like I said, like when people transition, there are certain things that there's certain habits and stuff that do survive the transition and are actively decided, like, you know what, I'm going to keep doing this because I like doing it. Like, say, trans men still like painting their nails, even though they considered it a feminine activity before. Like, it is up to each individual person to decide what lies on which side of the line for them.
I think that's honestly that's a really good way to look at it. And at least I can only speak to myself on this kind of stuff too. A lot of the stuff I ended up throwing away was just a lot of like the motivations to be like the way I was before. Like I've done a lot of self-reflecting on this, right? And it's like now I understand where a lot of like my hyper masculinity came from, and a lot of it is sourced from my father and the way that my father used to speak to me, right? And like that's the kind of stuff I ended up having to throw away, because like my father used to be very critical, even from like when I was very young, about being too feminine. Would have arguments with my mother about us being too feminine, and like anytime we were around, like would always make me do like these things like out in the workshop, and like got to toughen me up, right? I'm going to teach you how to do this, blah, 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 that kind of mentality. And it's like that kind of stuff is what pushed me into like the hyper masculinity and to like prove that I'm a man to a man that didn't really want to raise me and doesn't really respect me enough to be like the person that I want to be. A lot of that is what I ended up throwing away, because it's just garbage. It just did nothing for me for half my life.
Well, and like at that rate, like you're doing those things in order to like fulfill the expectations of another man, rather than like because you actually wanted to do those things, which I think is where that disconnect lies.
Honestly, I really do think that, like, for me personally, and I can only say this about me, but it's like I really do look at my father in the way that he treated me as like, well, no wonder why I wanted to go into the military and prove I'm a man. I got to prove I'm a man to my dad. I mean, if I'm just being honest about it, I don't like him now, right? Like, obviously, like I can recognize how bad and abusive that type of behavior was, right? But there was a point in my life where I looked up to the man and I was like, I want to make him proud. I want to be like him, right? Now I know better. Now I've seen the error of my ways, right? And like, I've lived it, but it's like there wasn't always that, at least for me.
Floating Away Today says, personal opinion, if a person can't be with us if sex is off the table, that is something that might be a deal breaker. We've just seen a lot of relationships solely reliant on the physical and hated it. Yeah, no, that definitely might have some aspects of asexuality in there, or at least in the sense that like you rely on a different kind of bond to be there besides just the physical. I could definitely say that that is true in my experience as well for being demi. Like I do get attracted to folks, but like I made a post a while back where I joked where demi means you have to do my loyalty mission first. We have to have.
I love that.
we have to have a bond before I can actually feel attracted to you.
I'm actually glad that Floating Away brought this up, because I have done a lot of soul searching, and this is something that, for me, I actually pulled myself out of the dating pool for a really long time because of that particular thing, right? But it's like, I identify as asexual for a multitude of reasons. And it's not just a lack of interest in doing that physical activity, right? There's actual like physical disabilities that also play into that. And that's something that has been a big fear for me personally, because it's like, yeah, you could see the girl in the wheelchair, right? But like you might make the assumption that I might be able to do everything else, but I can't, right? And I've asked myself that same question. It's like, does anybody really want to be with me if I can't be with them physically, right? If I'm only demi-romantic, so I'm like somewhat like only kind of like romantic sometimes, right? And it's like, is anybody even really going to be interested with me? Is anybody going to want to deal with all this baggage that I have, like just with like my transition and like my physical disabilities, and then also not really get like the other stuff that you would get out of a typical relationship? The thing that I'm learning though is that by doing that, by like taking that mindset and like taking myself out, I'm deciding for everybody else who might be okay with that they can't have me, and that's unfair. So I've got to stop doing that. That's something that I've been going through personally a lot recently, and like really trying to like break out of my shell there.
Yeah, and it comes down to deciding like what you personally need out of a relationship. Like, yes, like for me, I need the physical in the end as well, but it also has to come with like, well, like Lily and I, we're hanging out and like playing like games together or watching stuff together or like, spending quality time together like all the time. And that is something that I needed out of a relationship. And that was something we talked about and like had deep conversations on like like setting the expectation before it ever became a problem.
Well, one thing that I've had to learn this just because of my relationship with those quote unquote physical activities, right? But like, I think a lot of people get hung up on like what that is traditionally versus like it's a very broad thing, right?
Oh yeah.
Two asexual people can have a physical experience that has nothing to do with that traditional type of physical experience, right? And it could be just as good for them as it would be for anybody else, right? So it's like about learning expectations and also just keeping yourself open to the right type of people. And I think that's really the mentality I need to have instead of just trying to like go, well, generally speaking, this might not be great for everybody, right? I can't exclude myself from everybody because of that, because there is going to be somebody who might be interested.
Well, and like the other aspect of it is, at least I personally feel that so many relationships these days are started on a premise of, well, two people want to be like an object together. And that's where like the relationship starts. And I really feel like it becomes more successful if you specifically start as like really close friends first and build a relationship off of that.
That
it can be
is
it can
huge
be
for me.
so much easier to actually make something that feels meaningful to both parties involved if that's where the relationship starts rather than trying to be a thing.
I'll say this because I've had folks slide into my DMs a few times, right? And like, there's nothing more off-putting than somebody coming in and just be like, I'm really accommodating to people in wheelchairs, and it's like, and it's like, if you just got to know me, you would never need to say anything like that, because if you just genuinely had conversations with me, you'd probably just learn how to that wouldn't need to even be something you state. So it's just like it automatically tells me that you've got like all the wrong things like right off the bat.
Like before I transitioned, I used to never be hit on at all. Like my ex was the first person to ever confess to me, like much later in life than most folks. And then I was only ever like hit on in the last couple of years after joining Fetty and after like fully transitioning. And I have to say it felt exceedingly odd, especially when they were obviously coming from a place of, hey, we just met. Also, can we be a thing? And I was just like, I don't think so. My walls are up.
I had this experience because like I said, I've been trying to like experiment a little bit more and like try to get myself out there in different ways. And I did that like random chat thing, right? And I was shocked how many cis folks are either like actually really okay with it. Like, I don't know, like I kind of went into the thing like expecting a bunch of people who were going to be like, oh, I like, no, like I don't want to talk to someone like you at all. Like, yeah, it's like kind of like it's my expectations about how they would treat me and like what actually happened were way different. And I could not believe how much I passed to so many cis people. And again, it's just an online chat, but it's like, I didn't really expect that. That subverted my expectations there.
It was wild realizing like, oh, there are folks that would look at me and actually want me. That's like kind of affirming, but also like, oh boy, we have new challenges to surmount.
Well, the one thing I will bring up, and like I'm not bringing this up to like overly get into it, right? But the one thing I never expected to happen was getting sexually harassed. that was
Yeah.
I've never been sexually harassed in my entire life before. That was a new one for me. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect it was going to happen from somebody that I knew in my real life. I didn't expect that it happened from a cisgender person, right? Like, that was something that completely took me by surprise. And I know now to be a lot more careful in the future. It's something that can happen to anybody, though. So just be like, I only bring it up because I want other girls to be careful. Like, be careful who you trust in your real life and who you give your personal information to, because they can use it against you in not great ways.
Yeah, like it depends on the person. Some folks are like fine with like, oh yeah, they want to use a dating app and have like a fling, like whatever. But like, yeah, I would recommend anyone that like that is thinking that they might want to be in a relationship at some point. Like, yeah, you can have that as like a goal. It's like that's something you might want, but I would not start. I personally would say don't start with like trying to start a relationship as being dating. Like, like the thing that you should probably be doing if you're like me is instead try to collect a lot of friends. Like, meet a bunch of people, like hang out, play Minecraft, play, Final Fantasy 14, do whatever, like do stuff with folks and meet a bunch of people. I met Rain, I met Tama, I met Lily, and like I kept talking to more and more folks. I met a bunch of like folks even just like in theater now, in the streaming, and make a lot of friendships. And eventually you might look at one or two of those and be like, you know what, I'm thinking about this person all the time and I just keep wanting to talk to them. You can then like maybe build something off of that. And that's going to be so much stronger than like, hey, we met in a kind of like romantically available setting, let's hook up.
Yeah. Like, I wish mine was even that kind of setup. Like, and I'll just bring this up. Like, the only reason I'm going to bring up the details on this is just to like help other girls like be a little bit more prepared, because this one took me by surprise. This person I wasn't even interested in. They were hired to fix stuff in my house, came here, and I gave them my phone number so I could let them back in to fix stuff. I didn't expect them to start sexually harassing me. So something like to just keep in mind, be careful about the people that like you can't just like treat like, and like it can come from any source, but it's like just be careful. Be careful who you give your information to, and always kind of have maybe just a little bit of like what could be the other underlying motivation that they're doing this, right? But thankfully that's only happened once, and I hope it never happens again, because I hope it's just really just that person just being an awful person.
And on a slight tangent, I wanted to comment on this before it flew away. But Kenshin Man says, I can understand neurodivergence since I have autism, which does affect my social life, but allows me to think so analytically. And yeah, like part of like neurodivergence and having a different neurotype is like you might be more like apt to think of things as more definitive like rules and structures, rather than honestly a lot of neurotypical folks are able to like vibe through social scenarios. They're running more, their autopilot is able to handle a lot more. So like that's definitely how I am. I'm definitely more I have to understand the mechanics and the rules of how things work so that I can manage what I'm doing. But like, everyone's different. You just need to kind of like find people that match your way of understanding, your communication styles and whatnot.
I think honestly that's the best advice. I think that just kind of goes with dating in general, right? Just you've got to really build a proper foundation with somebody. I think too many people just rush into a relationship based on like infatuation. And infatuation and love are not the same thing. Like what in the infatuation, because I've been in a very I've been in a relationship with somebody for 10 years. I've done this, right? When the infatuation wears off, right? And you really want to keep that relationship going with somebody, you better have the fundamentals there, or once that's gone, there's nothing left for you two to really like kind of like, I don't know, communicate or do together, like if the whole basis of the relationship was like we really like are attracted to each other, that may not last for as long as you think it will, right? And you really gotta love like everything about them before you could spend that amount of time with somebody.
Like Lily and I, like we're both trans, like we're both neurodivergent. Ours is a relationship where like, yeah, we're physically attracted to each other, but also like, you know, she is my wife, like she is my girlfriend, she is also just my best of friends. Like we are all of those things simultaneously, and it's like we are wanting to share more than just a singular aspect of our lives with each other.
And that's, I mean, honestly, that's like the most important thing. And I think the other thing, like, and I can only really comment on this just because I've personally experienced this, but when you're with somebody and you make a plan to be with them for a long period of time, and I wish I knew this going into that like very long-term relationship, but you will both fundamentally change. The person you were, and like this should be obvious, right? But you don't realize, I didn't realize this in my youth because like I was in my 20s back then, right? But the person I was then was not the person I was when I ended that relationship, and I'm nowhere even close to being the person I was when I ended that relationship. So twice already, I've completely changed who I am, right? And that's something you need to recognize in a relationship. And there was the reason why that relationship ultimately failed was because we both fundamentally changed into two completely different people that were no longer compatible. And I wish I had a solution to that. I think, like, honestly, if I had to go through, like, a really long-term relationship again, I'd just be, like, I work on the fundamentals more, right? And just making sure that, like, we don't drift apart even if, like, our interests change or who we are, people start evolving.
Lily sending my darling, my companion, heckin' Jamie Page reference is so appropriate.
She's so adorable.
But yeah, like as far as like the changing things, like yeah, everyone develops, and like something that like not everyone remembers to do. But like in that case, it can be a chance for both people to evaluate, like, okay, which direction are we changing, and are we generally heading in the same direction? And like that can be a point where it's like you can make a decision on like, yeah, we're drifting apart, or like, yeah, we're changing, but we're in this together.
It just, and I can only like speak on this because now obviously, like, you know, hindsight is 2020. That relationship probably should have ended 4 or 5 years before it did. It's really easy to get into an autopilot mode with somebody just because things are set up. You have an entire life built together at that. If you've been with somebody for 5 years, you've pretty much got a life established at that point. You have mutual friends, right? It's really hard. And it's sometimes, and this is what I found, it's easier to go, well, what they're doing isn't that bad, instead of going, actually, it really is that bad. This needs to be addressed. Like, you kind of brush it off because it's like, well, but I really enjoy the things we do. Like, we have our Friday night get-togethers with all our friends, right? And it's like, it can be really tough to make, like, to recognize that. And that's something I wish I did better in that relationship. I definitely was way too forgiving.
And Butter says, and even then, just because a relationship ends doesn't mean that it's failed, just that things change. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I want to remind Rain that we wanted to end.
Oh my God! It's 12. Oh my God! It is 12 o'clock already. I completely lost.
I should probably poke before we go too much farther.
No, I appreciate that. I think this is a good place to wrap everything up. For everybody in my chat, obviously I left tons of links to Leanne's channel. Most of you already are, but if you haven't, please go over to her channel, give her subscribe button a big ol' head pat for me. I'd really appreciate it.
And likewise, Rain is a huge friend of the channel. I loved hanging out with you today.
This was so much fun. It was so much fun. I lost track of when we were supposed to end the stream.
I kept being like, oh, I got a poker about this soon, but I want to go through this one more point. And that kept happening like 5 times in a row.
Same with me. Like, the more we get into this conversation, the more I get into it. But yeah, no, unfortunately, we both have other things that we got to take care of today.
Mm-hmm. Well, that just means that there's definitely more material for other streams.
All right, so before I go, I like to say a very special thank you to everybody who showed up, not just to my stream, but also to Leon's stream. So if you're over looking at my stream, I've got a thank you screen up right now. From the bottom of my heart to yours, thank you, everybody, not just for showing up to here, but for those who choose to support either myself or Leon.
And thank you so much for dropping by, everyone, as well. I know this isn't my usual stream time, but it's so amazing to see everyone that was able to make it again. Once more, once again, the biggest thing that I would probably want to shout out is either hanging out in my streams, in our Discord, or even commission me. That would actually help quite a bit.
Yes, please commission Leanne because she's super talented.
Y'all have a wonderful rest of your good morning, afternoon, evening.
Yes, everybody
I
out
am going
there.
to go crash.
Yes, please get some rest. And to everybody else, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.
Take care and bye-bye.
Bye.